The West Newbury Select Board open session meeting on Monday, June 14th, 2021 at 7:10 p.m. And so this meeting is being broadcast on local TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. And it's also available by remote participation. For that, you would use Zoom meeting ID 944-2379-5592 with passcode 809752. If anybody wants to participate who's hearing this on cable, or phone number 646-558-8656. Let's see. So for announcements, I guess the first one is it's a new invasive plant alert. So people may be familiar with the effort by the Climate Change Resilience Committee, among other things, trying to assess the issue of invasive plants in town. And there's I know, Mike, you're looking at me quizzically. There's actually a new to West Newbury plant that's known as a pretty nasty invasive. It's called black swallowwort. There is information on the town website on both the Open Space Committee and the Climate Change Resiliency Committee's websites. They're looking to identify locations in town and map them. Interestingly, our local expert, Nancy Powell, who's the biologist at Parker River National Wildlife Refuge, found plants here on the municipal campus on an area that's mulched just adjacent to the senior housing on the far side of the annex. So that was kind of unexpected. Hopefully it's not more broadly spread around town already, but it'll take over a field. It's nasty. Anyway, there's an Open Space Committee site walk scheduled for Tuesday, June 22nd with a biologist, pollinator specialist. They'll be looking at the Cherry Hill fields, the Indian Hill field, the Dunn field, actually, I think all three of the Dunn fields, and possibly River Bend. There's a tree committee survey that's available online. They're hoping for responses. This was announced at our last meeting as well. They're hoping for responses by June 15th, which happens to be tomorrow. So if anybody hears this, it takes about 10 minutes to fill it out, no more than that. So you can go to the tree committee web page on the town website for that. Also anybody who would like to could subscribe to the town news announcements. It's at the town website, www.wnewbury.org/subscribe. So first item on the agenda is changes to protocols for remote participation in public meetings. And Mike or Angus, do you want to summarize?
So
remember the mic.
no, I think people can hear me.
Oh, can they?
Stephanie, can you hear me? Okay.
Okay.
I'm close enough to the to the bar here. The declaration of emergency ends at midnight tonight. As a result, the governor's order permitting remote participation by boards and committees also expires. Presently, there's a proposal for legislation to extend that, some to September and maybe even to next April. But that has not been passed yet, and I think it's going to take a while for it to be passed, if it ever is. And as a result, as of tomorrow, committees have to go back to the way it was, in which they cannot have more than a quorum of their committee participating remotely. And additionally, because the restrictions on indoor and outdoor gatherings,
Mike, when you say they can't have more than a quorum, you mean they have
to have a quorum
a
present.
quorum present?
If there are members who cannot attend because they are geographically unable to attend or for some other reason, they can, as they could have in the past, participated remotely, just so long as they, are able to hear what goes on and people are able to hear them. But a quorum of the board must be present in the location, and the person chairing the meeting also must be present in the location. So if a chairperson is participating remotely, he or she has to, hand over the gavel to another participant who's actually there in the present. Additionally, now the meetings are open to the public. So, and I think that there will be some changes. I think that will allow for remote participation in the future. And I think there'll be some legislation on that, but who knows what happened. The governor proposed legislation about 3 weeks ago. Senate got a hold of it and added about 12 or 13 additional items. So now it's in the House, and then they're going to have a joint meeting, and then maybe the governor will or will not sign. So that's where we are.
Okay.
So in a related update, I am continuing to work with the AV tech who records these meetings, Adam, and he's working to scope out what additional equipment this room is going to need to do a better job with the hybrid meetings. Because right now, as you see, we have a mic that's designed to pick up distributed noise or sound, but we don't have a good situation on the camera where it's just pointing one direction. It's not capturing the whole room. And we think we're going to need additional mics set up for board members, for staff, and for public's comments, so that we're not having to, point the microphone, which we understand results in not always an ideal situation for people viewing remotely. So we are actively working on figuring out what equipment we need to make sure those people viewing remotely have full, can hear everything, and ideally can see everything. So.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is a proposal to rescind the COVID-19 local emergency declaration adopted on March 16th. I think we're probably all in agreement that we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, as you see, it reads that it shall remain in effect until further notice is given pursuant to the board's judgment that the state of emergency no longer exists. So we felt that with the state emergency declaration expiring at the end of today, that it was timely for the board to consider rescinding the local declaration.
I make a motion to rescind the emergency declaration of March 16, 2020.
Second.
All in favor, or any discussion?
As of midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight.
Great. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The next one is a lot of appointments for its FY22 committee appointments or reappointments. And what's the best way to go through this? Name by name?
Well, we do have a number of people present, both in person and virtually. So, we had reached out to everybody, letting them know that they would be considered. either for appointment or reappointment. As you know, in the past, applicants for reappointment haven't typically been expected to attend, but we gave everybody the option to attend. So
Yep.
that's probably a good way to start, is with those who have, taken the time to be here.
Okay. Great.
And is the same true for the applications? Reappointed people do not need to fill out an application.
Traditionally, they haven't. This year, as you know, we're transitioning to have the town clerk's office more involved with the reappointment process. So in the letter that went out, it did ask people to do the form, but it's not like if they don't, we're not going to recommend reappointment.
Right.
It is nice from a housekeeping standpoint to have a current form on file for everybody, but it's a formality.
Okay. Well, I guess for people who are physically present, maybe we'll start. Judy Meisner, currently on the Concom, the Capital Improvements Committee, and the Personnel Committee.
The CPC.
Oh, right, and the CPC as well.
But that's an appointment of the Concom.
Oh, right.
So,
Right.
yes.
Okay. So I guess the one thing I'd ask is, the current activity of the Personnel Committee, what is the Personnel Committee doing now? And, that's an issue that I think we have some cleaning up we have to do in general regarding, human resources or personnel policies. And you have any thoughts, Judy?
Oh, you will. Tomorrow, anyway.
Advisory committee that has been somewhat moribund since it has not received any. Angus met with the personnel committee pre-COVID, and we were starting to do some things. Then we hit COVID, and I would guess that it would be appropriate now to get some direction from the town manager as to what policies the board would like the personnel committee to review and advise on.
Okay.
Just, could everyone hear Judy, or?
Oh, that's right. I forgot to ask.
Mike did point to Mike, but
Oh,
it
great.
isn't. So basically, just to summarize, so Judy Meisner is currently on the Personnel Committee, was asked about the activities. She said that there have been some meetings, between me and the committee in pre-COVID, and that there was some work underway, and that things kind of came to a halt after COVID, which I totally agree with that. So there was a memo that was written, I think, in July 2019 that outlined 4 major kind of objectives. One of those was to work to ensure that the job descriptions in place are kind of complete and accurate representations of what the different positions do. And so working with the Personnel Committee, a memo had been sent around to every department with the current job descriptions and inviting staff input as to whether people self-assess that it was complete and accurate. So that some work was done with that. I think some work remains. There were a few other things in that memo. I don't have it in the front of mind, but it basically outlined 4 kind of pretty tangible things. One of which was the looking at the personnel policy, which, it was amended in just with the bereavement section, was amended about a month ago or 6 weeks ago. It hasn't been substantively amended in a couple of years anyway. I think 2018 there were some modest amendments, I think, but it hasn't really been re-looked at top to bottom. And obviously, since that time, there's a new form of government that was adopted with the Town Manager Act, approved in 2017. So there is work ongoing to scope out involvement of Labor Council to help with that, because I think there's a lot that they can do to help, both because of their expertise and just from a bandwidth issue. So that is something that's going to be moving forward, definitely over the summer into the fall. And I think the Personnel Committee would be a great sounding board once there's like draft amendments to, have as kind of a venue to go over those. maybe before it comes back to the board. I do think, given some of the changes, going on in form of government, I think it, at this point, probably would be valuable if a select board member was on the personnel committee. Obviously, you guys have a front row seat of a lot of the actual, specific issues. And so that perspective might be helpful on the committee and to help ensure that the there's good understanding of some of the specific issues, because as you know, they come up like it's, something will come up and we deal with it and then we move on and
Well, we don't necessarily correct the root problem.
right, yeah, to go back to amend the policy. And so we have a backlog of changes that I think would be very helpful. So yeah, there's a lot of work ahead in the next 6 to 12 months on that topic.
Okay.
And I think job classification review is another.
Repeat that. You think? I don't know. You hear that?
Point that to her, but don't scrape it, because people tell me that when you scrape it.
Okay, go ahead.
Job classification review was another issue that we were discussing.
Yeah, that's right, because while there have been some adjustments to different personnel wages, both, on separation of service and rehire, we always look at what the market is for different positions and try to make sure our pay scale is competitive. And there have been some other, a couple of other adjustments based on, recommendations to bring things in line with the market, but there hasn't been like a top to bottom review of which positions might be either below or above market, as well as the whole, pay classification with the different grades, and whether the different positions that are at certain grades are all kind of common in terms of the level of.
Yeah, so would it make sense, not tonight, but at some future date, for us to try to put some time on the agenda to figure out the charge for the personnel committee, and, just so that we move forward, and, and matching that up with when we have something going on with KP Law, with Labor Council.
I think that'd be great.
Judy, now you're chair, or you have been chair of the committee. Now, who else is on it now?
Catherine Conrad.
But it looks like she does not wish to serve. Just Ryan Goodwin.
Ryan,
That's right.
it's a committee that has had difficulty filling.
Yeah,
Judy, do you feel that if we want to revitalize this, and it sounds like Angus is one of the things that is on Angus's to-do list, is that you're on 3 other kind of important committees. You feel you're stretching yourself too thin there?
No.
okay. Okay, so,
Well, if we want to have a select board member on that, I'd be happy to help.
Okay,
Just
okay.
on that committee.
great. So, yeah, probably sometime later in the summer, probably, I'm not sure when we'll actually have something from KP, but then, we ought to more fully constitute the committee, and would be great if we could find another person or two to be on the committee as well, and define the charge and move forward from there. So, I would, nominate Judy Miser then for Conservation, Concom, Capital Improvements Committee, and Personnel Committee.
She's already,
It's for reappointment.
She done not up for reappointment for Congress.
I didn't think so.
Oh, okay.
I was told I was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading the.
It says it does, but yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I think it goes through next year.
Okay, so then that would be for Capital Improvements Committee, and which are you, I get too many pieces of paper here to refer to, but for the CICJ was
It
your,
does say Concom 21 here.
It's actually 2022. We're in the process of getting the town clerk's office more involved with the reappointment. So I have a spreadsheet, but there's a new spreadsheet and it looks like there were a couple of glitches where there was a transcription. So it is 2022.
Okay, so then I'll revise that to, I propose we reappoint Judy Meisner to the Capital Improvements Committee through 6/30/2024, and to the Personnel Committee, is that an annual appointment?
Yeah.
Through 6/30/2022 then.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Did you want discussion?
Or, I'm sorry, yeah, discussion, sorry.
I would, okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'm ready.
No discussion?
No, I just kind of think that Judy's would be on 4 relatively important committees. I'm going to vote no on the personnel committee,
Okay,
but
Okay.
aye on the others.
okay. I guess I should have done 2 different motions.
Excuse me?
I should have done 2 different motions. I'll do that.
It's fine. We'll get it clear in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, great.
It's clear what was.
Okay, and Jean, you're currently on the, Jean Lambert is also here, and is looking for reappointment to the Open Space Committee, and was there anything else, Jean? Was there another?
Just the open space committee, yes,
Oh, see, okay.
yes. I do have, after you finish the voting, though, I have something to say. But proceed with what you need to do, please.
Okay, all right, well, I would, and the term for open space is, so it's a 3-year term. Three-year term, okay. So, I mean, did you have anything you wanted to say beforehand?
Gene, just as a question, so is this just the way the spreadsheet is working? So, Gene, you're a regular member, correct?
Yes.
Because it has associate next to her name. Maybe that's the way it wraps the
Yes,
text.
extra.
Okay,
No, I
no
have been a
problem.
regular
Okay,
member
no.
No, we know.
quite a while.
Yeah, we know. If it was associate, it would say associate in this column.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's not role. So
It
that's
just wraps the
Yeah.
text the other way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other members whose term expires in 2021 have not, we don't know whether they're interested.
It's possible things have come in since this was posted, maybe today, I'm not sure, I haven't been in touch with Marie, but at the time that we put this together last week, we hadn't heard. So we'll follow up with everyone expiring in 2021 and
So,
make sure.
this person is, she's also.
Yeah, Jessica as an arrow, yeah.
No, as a re-up for open space.
Okay, oh, Carol, right,
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
But she's an
you're reading it,
associate.
well,
Yeah.
get them all. Yeah.
okay, all right.
Carol's associate.
Carol's an associate, yeah, okay. So, okay, well,
doesn't say.
yeah,
You're just doing reappointments at this point?
well, we're, because you're here, we're taking advantage of the fact that you're here to actually address you first.
Okay, because I had something to say about another position. on
Yeah,
the
there's 2
committee, but I just
people
wanted-
on remote that are requesting appointment first time.
Okay,
So are you taking
Okay.
this one at a time, or are you just doing the whole blanket?
What kind of work?
We're
is
trying to
that?
do as many.
yeah, because there's only 100 people or so here, so it's easy. No.
Maybe we should go committee by committee and just start with people that are here.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I was just trying to address out of the respect that you've shown up, so.
So should we vote on everybody or just vote on Jean and then move on to the people requesting?
No, that's probably a good idea, Wendy. We'll just do the entire, everybody on the committee, so who is up for reappointment. So the OSC, then it was Jean Lambert and Carol Decker. And I would then,
So she didn't submit any.
yeah, she hasn't submitted a request yet, apparently.
Basically, Carol's going to be promoted to a regular member, Jessica would like to be an associate.
Yep.
She would like to continue, as I understand it.
We probably need to have some.
That was my last knowledge, maybe she's changed since then.
Okay,
At
All right,
our
so-
last meeting.
okay, so I mean, so we need to appoint you as a full member or as an associate.
I'm a full member.
Yeah, okay. So I move that we appoint Jean Lambert as a full member of the Open Space Committee, effective through June 30th, 2024. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So,
May I say one more?
Okay.
On behalf, we have two candidates for the associate position that's open after you finish the other reappointments. And unfortunately, I don't know, I only know one of the candidates. The other candidate just evidently expressed his interest within the last month or so, so I haven't had the opportunity to meet him. I have worked with Kathy Fury for a number of years. She helped us on the Boucher transaction, the Coffin Street transaction. She borders that land, but she helped certify a vernal pool there with Carol Decker, another member of the open space, and myself. And also, she would provide an excellent link to the horse community that we have not had since Felicity Beach left. And since a lot of our decisions on trails, well, not a lot, but some of them involve bridges, for instance, that horses need to be able to access. That kind of knowledge is very helpful since trails are a lot of what we do. Plus Kathy's lived in town for 20 odd years and has a very good knowledge of it. So I just wanted to say that on her behalf. And as I said, I don't know the other candidate because he's just expressed interest recently. One other point, Kathy had wanted to be on our committee several years ago when Carol joined the committee and, you know, was unable to join us then and was hoping to now. So thank you for listening.
To figure out the associate versus the full member. It's not clear to me.
right, right. So, yeah, it sounds
Two
like,
green would be associate, which would be through 2022, not 2024. Kathy Fury and Grant,
Okay.
if in fact that's what they're applying for. But there may be, I think maybe we should defer this until the 28th because some of these people who did not express interest.
They're
Yeah.
both.
I know,
there.
but if perhaps there'll be a full position available if these other people don't renew and they may want to be a
Oh, good
full
point.
member instead of associate member.
good point.
Yeah, there's two people here that didn't reply, so.
Okay,
If Jessica didn't reply, my understanding was from our conversations, I said that she wanted to be an associate and Carol would be.
yeah, okay,
So the
Well, yeah.
number would get changed except the open associate.
okay. I guess we probably need to hear that directly from
And
Jessica.
Marlene Switzer is also.
She's probably.
Not getting anywhere here.
Okay, yeah, no, we're not.
Yeah,
So-
this was the downside of splitting the appointments
Right.
instead of putting them all to the 28th.
Yeah.
We were hoping we could kind of get some done and have it.
Okay.
but,
Well, let's
I
address,
think we should talk to the people that are.
exactly,
that
so,
are here.
Graham Batchelor, I see that you're there, could you, just give us a little background, what your interest in the OSC?
Sure. So I'm just wrapping up my second term as the president of the Friends of the North Shore Education Consortium. So it sort of frees up some of my time. I grew up in West Newbury and I'm back now with my own kids. And it's really been shocking to see the amount of development that's going on. And I wanted to see what I could do to try and help out with that.
Okay, great, thanks. That's kind of neat that you grew up here, unlike most of us. Okay, and Kathy, I know Jean spoke for you at length, but
Kathy's muted.
We can't hear you, Kathy.
There, now I'm unmuted. Was interested in the Open Space Committee actually longer ago than Carol after Felicity left, and I just didn't act quickly enough. So I've been interested. It's a committee I've been interested in for years. I would prefer an associate's position, especially if I'm going to possibly also be joining the Conservation Commission. Just for, it seems like it would make more sense that way to me. And I've lived in town actually more than 20 years. I've lived here since 1984. And I know the trails, and I've been very involved with the Riding and Driving Club, and keeping space open. So that's my background for open space.
Okay, thank you.
For those of you who don't know, she runs River Run Farm on Main Street.
Okay. So I guess we,
So we could appoint her as associate member if that's what she wants. If there needs to be 2 associate members.
okay, and I think Graham was also looking for he'd applied for the associate position as well, so we have competition for the position, which is unusual.
And we
You-
have more than 2 associates at your discretion? That would be great.
The open space committee is a creature of bylaw.
Yeah, I think it's five full members and 2 associates. It's-
7
it's-
and 2.
Seven and 2,
That's what
okay.
we've had, but I didn't know this is interest.
Yeah, the bylaw dictates how many members.
And unfortunately, we don't know if any of the people who haven't put their names up, whether, whoever responded, whether or not they're going to.
Well, could we appoint Graham and Kathy as associate members, and then if next meeting, some of the full members don't want to be full, we can just change it then?
That's probably a good way to do it, yeah, because it's,
That's the way to
yeah,
do it.
okay, great. Yeah,
Right,
so,
I move to appoint Graham Batchelor and Kathy Fury as associate members for the Open Space Committee, term expiring 6/30/2022.
second. Any discussion? Any more? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Kathy, seeing as you're already talking, so you would like to be on the Concom as well. And did you have anything in particular you want to say about that?
If I could just speak, that she's filling the spot that I had, and since I reached out to her and she expressed interest, she's gone to every Conservation Commission meeting, trying to get up to speed.
Great.
She's
The,
taking the classes.
Conservation Commission is an appointment of the town manager.
Okay,
It's,
It's in the statute.
Okay,
is this the first year that it's been done like that?
No, you were appointed this.
Town manager?
well, so it's one of the little known changes and it's basically says that in towns with a town manager form of government, it's the town manager's appointment subject to the select board approval.
Mhm.
So, I put this in front of you, so.
okay, so according to Mass General Law, though, you are the person who appoints, so,
That it- subject to select board approval.
okay, so have at it.
Well, I've put it in front of you, I say,
Okay.
based on those who have
Okay.
submitted applications.
Okay, I move that we approve the town manager's choice for Concom. Kathy Berry
Did
is,
you in fact propose her? Is that,
No, just in putting in front of you the slate.
okay, so then what's the procedure if you're appointing? You just,
In the last couple of years, it's been the board's voted it, and we've treated it like any other. But Mike is correct that as a matter of law, it did change. It's something, I say it's little known because it's something that it's not part of the Town Manager Act. It's just elsewhere in Mass General Law.
okay,
It says that, so.
so then what would the procedure be then?
I think just for the board to vote it.
yeah, so,
Okay.
well, I move that we accept the town manager's suggestion of Kathy Fury for position on the Conservation Commission through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Who else is here that is,
That's
Remind
it.
them to come in to,
right, that's right. So everybody who's been appointed, please come on in and get yourself sworn in with the town clerk.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so as far as the rest of this, maybe you're right, Angus, maybe we should just do the rest of it. And I guess this is incredibly cumbersome and would take us the rest of the night to go through this list as it is.
I wonder if in the future we could just have a meeting solely dedicated to committee board reappointments instead of trying to combine it with.
I mean, typically if it's, let's say it's the last meeting of the fiscal year, and by that point, everyone's been contacted and recontacted.
Yeah.
And that way, everyone who's interested has provided a form or not. Then typically it's, you just, the board might, there might be a motion to approve those nominations as outlined in and the board doesn't vote each one separately.
Yep.
You just vote the whole
The whole
package.
slate, right,
And then if there's questions, you could kind of like you put a hold on the line on the.
yeah, on the budget, right, okay, all right, so, I guess I would propose that we do that at our next meeting, we just go through the slate, which hopefully will be filled out more completely.
Yeah, I don't see any downside to that because everyone's appointments are through the end of the month anyway, so if you act on the 28th, everyone will still be timely for the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay,
Although, I mean, there are people that have expressed interest. They haven't voted on Council on Aging, Tom Atwood for Concom.
okay, you want to just run through them then? I mean, I guess it'll be easy if, we'll just go through the sheet.
And you could do it by page or number of
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah, right, yep. So page 1 is,
Bandstand coordinator.
yeah, Brian Young. So, okay, I would move that we appoint Brian Young as bandstand coordinator through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Judy was 2 there.
Tom Atwood for
Okay,
Concom, which I
yep,
guess is Angus's call.
okay.
I'm content for that to continue.
Yeah, okay, so I move that we would appoint Tom Atwood for Conservation Commission effective through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move that we appoint Gail DeNaro as vice chair, well, as as council.
Yeah,
Right. So
correct.
council on aging also.
Yeah, and this is, so the position role refers to.
Yeah, no, that was my just
Yeah.
going, reading the lines. I wasn't paying attention, sorry. So, Gail DeNaro, Doc Kavanaugh, Jessa Haynes, and Diane Faulkner, all as members of Council on Aging through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And move that we appoint Sue Doherty and Doc Kavanaugh for the Cultural Council. Let me see, that's on the next page as well.
And
Jessica.
Yeah, and Jessica Nizick, who will be a new member, all through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
For discussion, I don't want to be a stick in the mud,
Okay,
but the statute does set a term limit for cultural council.
okay,
I don't know that that's ever been,
yeah, you can only have 2 terms, I
Yeah,
believe. Yes.
So we do, and you hate to turn someone away for sure. But.
No, but I think that's actually a state
It's in the
statute.
statute, yes, yeah. So it is limited to 2 3-year terms. So Susan Doherty has, oh, no.
She has
No,
1 year left.
no, this would, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, should be fine. At the end
okay,
of
this would be
current term,
this would
she'd
be your
the
second term, it looks like.
Yeah, got
Okay,
it,
okay. So you're not a stick in the mud, you just.
Okay.
You just,
For the record,
you just
that's-
simply pointed out
That's
something that
really
none of the rest of us
knowing
knew
some
about.
Trivia to know the term limits of the cultural council.
So anyway, so.
Ken Jennings wouldn't even know that.
But Angus Jennings.
Yeah. Angus, yeah, you trumped it.
Okay, yeah, again, Sue Doherty, Doc Kavanaugh, and Jessica Nizick through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And move that we actually, okay, that's right, we didn't, I already got sworn in for that, that's fine.
I move that
Those
we-
were actually all through the end of 2022 already.
No, I think we did it to,
How did we do? I can't remember.
I
What did
thought,
we do?
I thought you just did it through 2021.
Are you thinking of-
Okay, no, you're right. Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
make a
I'm getting
motion.
committees, yeah.
Yeah, there's the sustainability. or-
Right, okay, yeah, so make a motion for,
I'll do it.
okay,
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint Elisa Grammer, Rick Parker, Bob Phillips to the Energy and Sustainability Committee for a term ending 6/30/2022.
It's actually not Rob Phillips.
yeah, that's right, it's Tom Craig, that's a legacy typo.
Oh.
Yeah, so it actually should be Tom Craig.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard from Tom Craig, but I'm sure you haven't heard from Phillips Robinson.
Okay.
But we'll assume Tom is
Okay.
his hat in the ring.
All right, second.
All in favor? Finance Committee,
That's just through,
yeah, nobody's responded other than Jessica, and Jessica has responded just through, for a brief period through July 15th, 2021, for a specific reason. But it looks like the other members have not yet responded.
And there's just one whose term is up this
Oh, that's
year.
right, okay.
But we do also have a vacancy.
So Jim Spurlock is okay.
Yes.
No, but we definitely want to get Jessica.
Yeah,
there
we
'cause
do.
need
So,
her.
move that we appoint Jessica Nezek to the FinCom through July 15th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move that we appoint Steve Boyd as an alternate for the Harbor Committee through June 30th, 2022.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just, under discussion, just, you know.
Yep.
So I think Archie, you'll remember this, and Rick, you might, I can't remember if you were on the board, but the harbor regulations do only refer to a 3-member committee.
Okay.
So the history on this is that Steve was one of the initial residents that contacted my office early in my tenure with concern about, speeds at boats, lack of enforcement, so on and so forth. And he organized some neighbors, very helpful in bringing attention to some of the issues. That's what led to our broadening the agreement with Salisbury for Harbor Master Services. He subsequently applied to be on the Harbor Committee. The Harbor Committee with 3 members is full. The board, and this goes back to 2019, did vote to appoint both Steve and Brian Richard as alternate members. The regulations don't specifically authorize that, but the board felt, and I tend to agree, I think Mike agreed, it's the board's committee. If the board wants to appoint an alternate, you can. I just want to make it clear, it's the regulations don't authorize that, so they really don't have any standing.
Okay.
But the intent was to bring more transparency to that committee so that concerned residents, of which Steve is one, would get notice of meetings, would be a participant. So I strongly recommend keeping them on there. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay.
There's a lot of issues. We sort of ignore the harbor.
I don't, I'm in touch with them.
No, I know, but I mean, it's
Yeah, there are a lot of issues.
under the radar, but they actually have a lot of jurisdiction and a lot of things that we have to think about.
That's for sure, yeah. Yeah, I reached out to Brad 5 or 6 times now to invite him to present to this board about the study that they did last August. So I would like to make that happen, because they did had this consultant do a study
Right.
in Warrenfield, and we'd like to get that presented to this board so you can know what's being considered.
Yeah, that would be good to know.
And is he not interested in reappointment, or you don't know?
I haven't heard from him, and he hasn't gotten, hasn't taken the invite to present, but I know he's super busy too, so.
Okay,
So conceivably, Steve Boyd could be
Conceivably,
reappointed as a full-time member?
conceivably, I mean, knowing Brad, I suspect he is interested,
Okay.
but as with the others, we want to hear from him.
Yeah.
And we'll follow up with everyone whose term is up, to make sure that they either get us a response or tell us affirmatively that they're not interested.
okay,
All right, so did we vote?
You did not.
yeah, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Historical Commission, I move that we appoint Alyssa Grammer and Dot Kavanaugh to the Historical Commission, effective through June 30th, 2024. All in favor? Move that we appoint Dot Kavanaugh to the Historic District Commission, effective through June 30th, 2024. All in favor?
All right.
The OC, through the OSC.
Registrar.
Actually, next is Personnel Advisory.
We did that.
Oh, we did that, right, okay. Yep, okay. We haven't heard. Catherine's not doing, okay. So Registrar is Peg Dushman. I move that we appoint Peg through June 30th, 2024 to the Registrars of Voters.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move that we appoint Rob Phillips, Alyssa Grammer, and Barry LaCroix to the River Access Committee through June 30th, 2022.
And just a quick note on this, I did get a call from Rob last week, and he had conferred with all the other two, and he attested they're all interested. They didn't submit paperwork, but they're all interested. So I recommend that.
Great. Thanks. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Tree Committee. Was there a new name?
Yeah, on the next page.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Okay. So, yeah, for the Tree Committee, move that we appoint Rita Walmering and Sue Doherty through June 30th, 2024.
So is one an associate or what?
Well, it looks like Rita was an associate, but she requests to become a full member.
No, I don't think so. I think she's requesting to be.
I think she's requesting to be an associate.
And do they have the
It says here-
same
It
term?
says in print, request
Oh,
becoming a
you're
full
right.
member.
You're right.
Let me see if I've got a.
There might have been one in this pack.
I don't, maybe it's one of the, it's the one of the little.
Oh, that asterisk, let's see. Oh, yeah, no, that does correspond. Huh. Maybe.
I don't see it.
You might want to table that one, because I'm not finding a form or any.
I don't see a form for that one.
Okay, but Sue Doherty was on there, and I'm guessing you did have we do have Sue Doherty.
So it says up to
Yeah.
5 members for 3-year terms, and they're all 2022. I mean, are we appointing more people than?
This is one where there have been consistently more people applying than there are spots.
Can't hear anything anyway.
So currently, there's 5 members that are serving through 2022.
Let me check that on my original. Yeah, I've got that.
Well, I guess that's why Rita requested becoming, oh no, she requested to become a full member. Maybe that was hoping or thinking that perhaps somebody else was trying to not re-up, but
What 2 people did.
yeah, but there were 7 on it. There were 7 names here. Besides the new 2.
Well,
Is there-
Rita is on there already.
She is.
Okay, she's in green here, which says first time appointment.
All right, why don't we skip over that one?
Okay,
so we
yeah,
have more
okay,
information.
yep, good point.
Are you skipping over both of them?
and that's it.
I just got a message that they're having trouble hearing you, Wendy.
Okay,
So,
all right, project.
yes. Use your teacher voice.
That would be my mom voice.
Okay. All right, so, yeah, so we'll take this back up again at our next meeting on the 26th.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is a review of the FY22 salary and wage schedule.
Okay, so what you have in front of you, under the Town Manager Act, it's my job to recommend salaries and pay rates. But those are subject to modification approval by the Select Board. So what you have in front of you is a proposed salary and wage table with the different positions, which correspond to what the proposed or what the now approved FY22 operating budget is based. And in addition, you have an update of the annual range, wage range table, which gives for the different grades what the minimum and maximum is for positions in that grade. So this is something that historically the board has also voted annually. And so it simply takes last year's table and adjusts it with a 2% goal, which is.
Yep. Okay. Does anybody have any questions, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I just had a question. The contracts that are currently being negotiated, they're not reflected in here.
Correct. What we've done is because until there's a contract in place for the bargaining units, the current year rate of pay would go forward until a new contract is in place, at which point, when the board votes that, you'd be asked to vote that retroactive if it's after the first of the fiscal year.
Angus, under the ZBA, so there's just a annual stipend, correct?
Well, so there used to be, and then what we did is, beginning with the current year budget, we built that into the wage of the employee who does that work. So it's built into the hourly wage. It's no longer a stipend.
Okay, but it is, for accounting purposes, how would what line item, I guess, how is that apportioned?
Inspectional services.
So the ZBA part of it would also be under inspectional?
No, but the primary staff support for the ZBA is the building inspector. And so,
Okay,
yeah, so the idea was
to link them kind of, yeah.
Yeah, to link them in part because with the stipends, that was paid year in, year out, even in years when the ZBA had literally no activity in the year, not a single application. And so part of why it was built into the pay rate was to make it clear that the employee who provides that support is kind of on the clock for the ZBA every hour that person's working. So for instance, when we had the potential 40B, which if that had ended up going forward, would have implicated a lot of public inquiries, a lot of people coming in, looking at plans, wanting records. We wanted to clear that administrative position, it's not like a stipend, it's part of the job is to manage those records for ZBA, make them available to the public, manage the website in the event of like a 40B where there's a need for uploading things on a timely basis. So yeah, so we met with the affected employee. She was agreeable to the change because it helped her, it held her compensation constant. In fact, it's getting the 2% a year, whereas with the stipend it was flat for a lot of years. So, but it also makes clear that, for instance, if there was a need for hours outside of budgeted, that those are paid at an hourly basis, and it's not just a stipend without any clear relationship between.
Oh, if it went the other way where there might be needed extra hours.
Correct, yeah.
Like
if
before
that-
we had gone through. it would-
Okay,
Because
gotcha.
of hours, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it makes a lot more sense, and we did that change with the current year budget. But I left it in here just for, historical purposes, so you knew it hadn't been forgotten.
Does anybody want to make a motion or is there any more?
Any more questions? I'll make a motion to approve the wage schedule effective for fiscal year 2022 as reported, starting on page 44 of the packet.
Second. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Thank you. And the next item is review of proposed revisions to facilities use rental policy and fee schedule.
Here we go again.
So we don't, like I said in the packet, we don't have red lines in front of you, so we don't have, but I did want to update you on the work that's been going on. Basically, I'm trying to arrive at a estimate of the actual staff time impact and by extension cost of the facilities rental process. So, and I included some comparable policies and fee schedules from other communities in the region. So, this needs a little bit more work to have something ready to vote, but I did want to show that some progress has been made in the last 2 weeks. And I don't know if there's issues in here you want to talk about, happy to do that. But one of the policy questions that, you're gonna be asked to address, presumably 2 weeks from tonight, when we'll try to have something in front of you, is the issue of fees for nonprofits, yes or no. That's been a longstanding issue. As well as making meeting rooms available for non-public or public interest type uses. There's been some question about, do we continue to do that?
So by that you mean in this building, meeting rooms?
Yeah, meeting rooms, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so specific concerns that have been brought to me, by staff, one includes kind of like we had a request not that long ago for a private organization that wanted to book a room to do a whole day of employment interviews. And it kind of felt like it's a public meeting space. Like we only have 2 meeting rooms in the building.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like we wanted to tie up one of our 2 meeting rooms for an entire workday. So right now, the policy doesn't really say that, but you see some of the other communities are specific on like who they'll rent to and who they won't. Another thing that's been, I know at times there's programming in the meeting rooms, and at times there have been like painting classes, and so paint then gets disposed of in the sink, and there's potentially a mess. And those are the kinds of things that we want to think through, because it does lead to more staff time. It does potentially lead to impacts on the septic for this building, which is pretty old at this point. So I'm not ready tonight to like recommend one way or the other, but those are some of the issues at a staff level that we're looking at.
But in general terms, from our last meeting, I think where we'd gotten was we were going to limit it to 1 use per facility per day.
That's right.
And we have begun to schedule uses.
Oh, yeah.
At this point.
Yep. Yeah, we've booked a lot. I know.
And that was out through the end of July.
Mid-July, I
July?
believe. And
Okay.
Andy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I see you on there, and I know you know the details of this better than I do. So I don't know if you want to chip in with anything, but yeah, we have been approving facility use requests through mid-July.
Yes, we have a lot of people that call and want the space, and I actually have to say no because it's one per facility per day.
I guess with that limited usage, one of the things we'll have to consider is how we prioritize spaces, based on what the organization is that's requesting use of the space. If it's a community organization, does it get a higher priority than something else? If it's related to some form, to a private business of some kind, or how do we prioritize? Because, at that point, with just one use per day, we really have substantially limited space availability.
Well, that was to get our feet wet.
Yeah, right.
We might be loosen that up, but we want to get input on, again, how much time, for example, for John to clean it under certain situations. And you can see he's got like 3 hours for some of these kinds of events. So that's a big,
big chunk of time.
Big chunk. Yeah. And it's also interesting to see what the rates are, for example, in Newburyport, a community room, they're $150 for 1 hour.
Yeah.
So that's why we're so desirable, because we're a lot more affordable.
I would like to consider restricting use of the hearing rooms in the building to town-affiliated groups rather than renting them out. I don't know what you feel about that, but I said I would like to restrict the use of meeting rooms in the town office building to groups associated with the town rather than nonprofit or rentals or whatever.
I kind of agree. And Mike, you might speak to this even more. Like a lot of the ones that were using the rooms in here were just sort of historically, they had been using it, and then sort of we grandfathered them in. Wouldn't you say that? Like something.
We had a lot of the uses for different groups that basically kind of operated on like a weekly basis between mahjong, yoga, and what was it for a little while there, the card room.
Card room, yeah.
So,
but these were just because it had always been that way, kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Were they sort of under the auspices of Council on Aging, or
yes, yes.
Yeah, so I mean.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's reasonable, Wendy. I guess if it was a community benefiting group that wasn't specifically, related to a town board or committee or a town committee or town department. I'm struggling for an example, but
The Garden Club.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the garden club. Yeah. I mean, I would consider that in that category.
Yeah, okay. How about like there's our early intervention. They have an office here. They needed a larger space and they have available. Would that, something like that qualify?
I mean, today,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. But today it's open.
Yeah, okay. I guess we'll just talk about that at more
Yeah,
length.
and it depends whether it's
Yeah.
during the day or at night. I mean, most committees meet in the evening, so,
Right.
it may not be a conflict.
Well, and that's an important point, Wendy, because if it's, town committee providing
Precedent.
for after hours access isn't a concern, but do you want, if, let's say it's a homeowners association for a condo development and they want to have their annual meeting, and that does come up pretty regularly. If there's no evening meetings, there's no staff here, from a building security standpoint, is that good practice to just, give out a key?
I don't think so. I think the annex would be the
Yeah, that's a more
appropriate venue.
secure,
Yeah.
or although actually there's it's not secure, and you can get from the annex into this building without any problem, so.
Secrets out.
All right, so we're waiting to the next meeting?
I think so. We do, there is one question, that I sent out by email on the request from the Red Cross. I've got blood drive tomorrow. It asked the question, are masks required? So you tell me, we'll tell them. And hey, Annie, you have their contact info, right?
I do.
Okay, so listen close, and then whatever the board says, if you could send them a note, first thing in the morning, that'd be great. Or send me the info tonight, and I can send them an email tonight.
Well, I'll make a motion and we can discuss, and I'm going to move that, that they would not need to wear masks. They would follow their, the CDC protocol, which would, I think, say that, my understanding at least is that masks are not required, but if you have not been vaccinated, you should wear a mask.
For discussion?
Yeah, that's for discussion.
I would prefer to see all town buildings have the same policy, just for continuity. That way, if employees that are working in the town have to go into the other spaces, they will see level of protection that they're afforded here.
If they had to go into those spaces for their job.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking of that too, like, would someone have to go over there?
I mean, I don't think it's a particularly onerous requirement if they're renting our space or using our space, if they just follow whatever policy that the town office building is using, which may change in 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I guess you can propose to amend my motion,
Or we can vote it down.
or you can vote it
Well,
down.
there's no second so far.
There wasn't seconded. Okay, right.
So there can be an alternate motion.
All right, so I move to have all town facilities follow the same policies the town office building with respect to use of masks.
Second.
So just under discussion, my question is then, as policy changes relative to this building, everything else will follow. Right? So we had talked about the mask wearing in this building, reconsidering it at the end of July, if I remember right.
End of June.
At end of June, okay, end of June. So if we reconsider that at the end of June and decide it's no longer necessary, then all buildings will change accordingly. That. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Regrettably.
Annie, if you could either send the contact info over to me tonight or just send them a note first thing in the morning. That'd be
I meet them at 7 in the morning, so I can tell them then.
beautiful. That's great. Thank you so much. So Rick, I see that we have some people interested in the housing topic. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we segue to that? That's right. Yeah, I see. Anna's on. I think Tim was on, and Bardine is. I see Anna Sullivan's there too. I'm not sure if that's for that topic. But, oh yeah, Tim is there right now. Okay. Sure. Why don't we move on to? Angus has a presentation regarding the Massachusetts housing policy and local policy options.
Okay, so I've got, I don't have slides or anything, but I wanted to just present some information that I put together about a year and a half or two ago for a CPC meeting to help kind of frame the discussion of housing. I think it's relevant and a good baseline for us as a community, talking about what we might like to do in terms of housing policy. But it's intended to set out some basic policy context at the state level, and to outline what some of the potential policy options are. So I'll start with just some basic facts. The town adopted the housing production plan in June 2018. And by doing so, that creates the potential for a so-called safe harbor from 40B development. Right now, our percentage on the subsidized housing inventory is 2.5%, 39 out of 1,558 units. We think once they issue the new numbers, that will go up to about 2.7% with the addition of the Drake's Landing units. But when the new 2020 census numbers come out, that changes the denominator, so it will go right back down. So we're in the neighborhood of 2%, low 2%. To meet the housing production plan and to get that safe harbor, we would need to produce 8 affordable units per year, which is 0.5%. That would give a 1-year safe harbor, or 16 units per year for a 2-year safe harbor, affordable units per year. If you look at the data over the last 10 years or so, the town's issued about 14.5 total new housing units per year on average. There are 2 mechanisms to add affordable units to the subsidized housing inventory. One is through Chapter 40B. The second is through what's called the Local Initiative Program, or the LIP. And those are so-called local action units, and those have to have resulted from some kind of local subsidy, not necessarily a financial subsidy. It could be, and very often is, a regulatory subsidy, which is to say some zoning relief or some additional density that's allowed because you have affordability. But those are some just basic facts about housing production plan, safe harbor, and the production thresholds needed to get safe harbor.
Angus, just for my own benefit, when the you would say, okay, we need 14 units, 16 units for 2 years, 8 units a year. So that assumes that there's 0 non-affordable growth, or not.
Well, no, so the denominator on the equation of the 10% changes only every 10 years.
Oh, okay. So it's a
Census numbers.
It's a fixed number.
It's a fixed number.
Okay.
And so when the new census numbers come out, probably this fall, that'll be our new denominator for the next 10 years.
Okay.
And so our denominator right now is 1,558. That's how you get to the 1% and 0.5%. So if that goes to, let's say we've added about 150 total units over the course of the year, our production threshold will probably go up to 9 and 18 or 9 and 17.
Okay.
Like that. So the housing production plan identified 3 categories of housing strategies. One is planning and policies. The second is production, and the third is preservation of existing affordable housing. The resources that we have available include the community preservation funds. The amount of actual dedicated funds is limited right now due to the relatively recent approval of the project at Hills and Boynton. But going forward, you can expect about 50,000 a year dedicated to community housing. Of course, the town could expend more than that. That's just 10% is the minimum that's earmarked for housing. The second source of funding is the payment in lieu fund, and that's got a total balance on the order of $160,000. So, a significant amount of funding. And of course, as I said, you can put the undesignated CPC funds toward community housing. I think some of the challenges that we have as a community is that there's not necessarily broad recognition of the problem of affordability. Some of the popular local housing strategies that I think would get broad support in terms of zoning changes or funding, those kinds of things, in practice either don't work or they don't work the way voters often expect that they'll work. So I have a couple of summaries. So one thing that you sometimes hear is people support the idea of housing for older residents to allow people to age in place, to remain in the community as they grow older. And that's a great idea. That's a great thing. The challenge is when you get into the nuts and bolts of the state housing policy is the first is the income and the asset limits. And the asset limits tend to be, relatively low, so $75,000. So if someone owns an existing home, they probably have equity of more than that. So while the idea is, they might want to sell their home and downsize, probably their, either their income or their assets, if those exceed that threshold, they're not going to be eligible to get into a affordable unit. The second is restrictions on local preference. 15 years ago, communities were able to require a certain percentage of units, typically up to 70% of affordable units, to be available for local preference. The state changed the rules on that about a decade ago, and in order to get have local preference applied to affordable units, the town has to do basically a statistical analysis to show that the local need for affordable housing is disproportionately greater than the regional need. Otherwise, the state will not allow you to do local preference. So again, while it's a good idea and everyone would support housing for people who already live here, in practice, it's a challenge to get those units to actually be recognized by the state.
That's even for LIP. That's
Correct. Yes. Yeah. The second policy that's often talked about is accessory apartments. And this is something that, tends to be very popular. It's not adding structure, it's expanding or reusing, adaptively reusing an existing structure. One of the challenges with this one, you have the same concern of local preference, that you might not be able to apply that. But the bigger concern with the initial, whether it's sale or rental, and probably it's going to be rental of an accessory unit, any affordable unit through the LIP has to be subject to an affirmative fair marketing strategy or plan that's approved by the state, and that's basically you have to market the unit, within the region. You have to provide to the state documentation of where it was advertised, for how long it was advertised, and you have to really seek to make your community more diverse through that. So that's all well and good. The issue with accessory apartments ends up being it's still an owner-occupied home. So all of a sudden, that homeowner needs to decide, if they make a unit in their house and they rent it to somebody who's income eligible, they can do that. But if they want that unit to actually count as an affordable unit, they don't get to pick who lives there. It's who wins the lottery. So that single-family homeowner is no longer making a unit for, a cousin or a nephew or someone they know. They are now a landlord, and they don't get to choose. And that's fine. People can choose to do that. But in my experience, a lot of times when people realize that, they say, "Oh, geez, I would like to have an accessory apartment in my house, but I don't want to give up control of who I rent to." And so you can do that as a community. You can broaden your zoning allowances for accessory units, but I want everyone to understand that those units probably will not count toward your inventory.
But Angus, also remember, is that 2 families are allowed by right.
That's right. That's a really good
So
point.
why would anyone restrict themselves when they could put an what would be otherwise an accessory unit just by doing it, just by getting a building permit?
That's a really good point as well.
unless 9 of us a year decide to do it just to stave off a 40B.
So a third strategy that's often talked about is, and I think is broadly popular in a lot of communities, is acquiring existing homes and putting a deed restriction on them and then flipping them as an affordable unit. And that definitely can work, but it's time and labor intensive and capital intensive.
That sounds pretty expensive.
Well, it's very expensive because you have to buy the house and hold it for a period of time. You got to spend money on, the legal assistance to put the deed restrictions and do the marketing plans. And it's a significant, soft costs associated as well as direct costs.
When you say you have to hold it for a period of time, how?
Well, just to put the deed restrictions in and then to remarket it, whether it's, it might be 6 months, but it's not going to be 2 weeks, it's going to take some time. So you know, so it's definitely a, you know, resource intensive process. You know, just like selling any house, you need a realtor. you need
With
lawyers,
the,
closing
with
attorneys,
the
all that.
community as the ultimate owner still, or?
No, for the community to buy it and then sell it to a private party
But sell it at
at an affordable price.
At an affordable price?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and to get it into the housing inventory, it's got to, remember what I said at the beginning, the only two ways to get into the inventory are 40B and LIP. So through the LIP, the local initiative program, it's got to use the standard deed rider. It's got to be subject to an affirmative fair marketing plan. It's got to have resulted from a local subsidy. This would definitely count as a local subsidy, but the affirmative fair marketing would still apply.
And probably the house would have to be like, have all sorts of, pass all sorts of HUD tests and stuff too.
Yeah, it's gonna, obviously, it's gonna need to meet all of that. So, you know, if we were in a market where there were, you know, houses readily available that weren't that much above the affordability sale price, maybe the economics could work. But with the affordability sale price, you know, probably in the range of 180 to 185, if you're buying a house and then selling it for 180 to 185, you're making a huge financial commitment to create a single affordable unit, which is fine. Like I said at the beginning, you can do that. But I just want people to understand the cost in both, you know, financially and resources to do that, because it's not simple. It's not simple. Habitat for Humanity, this is one that's broadly popular. And I think if the town made the decision to make public land available for production of affordable housing, I know for sure Habitat would be interested. Lee and I have, you know, been in touch with them, and just in the last couple of months, we're in touch with them, not, you know, probably a couple of times a year. There is a challenge with getting Habitat units into the housing inventory, because as you may know from their business model is the residents of Habitat homes tend to contribute sweat equity. You know, they're actually part of building the house. So they're selected well before there's a house that's available for sale. So unlike the lottery process where the house is built, the price is set, it's broadly advertised, people apply, and someone's name is picked out of a hat and they won the lottery, Habitat doesn't do that. So when you look around the Commonwealth, most Habitat homes don't actually appear on the housing inventory because they weren't marketed under an affirmative fair marketing plan. So it's an example of a policy that sounds good, everyone likes it, and it is good, it's great, but it's not going to probably add to your housing inventory, and therefore not going to move the needle on 40B. So I guess the bottom line of all of this is it's going to be very difficult to achieve certification under the housing production plan. Therefore, in my opinion, the adoption of pro-housing policies cannot realistically offer the promise of safe harbor from 40B. That doesn't mean not to do it. I just want to be clear, because if, you know, I've been in this line of work a long time, been to a lot of town meetings with communities adopting inclusionary zoning and these kinds of things. And what I don't want to have happen is people put a lot of time and effort and get the votes and everyone's excited, we're doing something. And then you still get a 40B and everyone's like, wait, I thought we solved this. So that's why I'm outlining this, because it's, you know, it's important for people to know what you get and what you don't. I do want to summarize a couple of things we've completed recently, and then I have a couple of recommendations and a couple of policy questions. So some of the work that's been completed, we did get the regulations approved to govern the receipt and use of the inclusionary housing funds. That's the account that's set up with the payment in lieu. So that's been a great step. That required, you know, the planning board, the select board working together, and myself, Leah, and Mike working on that. So that's really good news. The second thing we've done is with that funding, we've engaged vendor who we have under contract, LDS or Lynn Sweet. And Leah and I had our kickoff meeting with them recently, and they've gone through our 13 lift units. Everything's in really good order. All the deed riders are proper. Everything's recorded properly. So that's really good. We expected to hear that, but it was really nice to validate that those units are all on, everything's in good shape. And the good news now that we have them under contract is if we're notified that any of those units are going to be resold, that sets into motion a whole lot of work that has to be done in a really short period of time with the resale, because the resale is subject to the same determining the resale price, which requires DHCD state approval, running a housing lottery, income verification. You have to provide 2 weeks notice to DHCD prior to the sale of each affordable unit. You have to provide them the purchase and sale, the loan commitment letter, the closing attorney contact info for the buyer. So basically there's a lot of transactional work, and that's been one of my concerns right along in the couple of years I've been here is, if we're in the midst of budget season or some busy time and we get notice of a resale and we only have, a very short amount of time, and there's not anybody whose job it is to do this other than me, that's been my fear all along, is if that comes in at the worst possible time and I don't have time to do it, that's a problem.
So now we have LDS.
Now we have LDS. So that's great progress. I feel so much better that we have a vendor. They're familiar with our situation, and when the need arises, we pick up the phone. Third thing we did that I think is very substantial is with the anticipated 40B that we had, we took the opportunity to completely retool the 40B regulation of the ZBA. And I know a number of you were involved with that process, and you know that the resulting regulation is just orders of magnitude better for everybody. It's better in some ways for the applicant because it's clearer and more objective, but it's also way better for the community in setting performance standards and setting clear expectations of application completeness and the kinds of things that have to be in an application. We also did some, I think, very good training, both for the ZBA and for the support staff on 40B, so that people would be, well prepared to handle that. It didn't end up coming to pass, but it may again in some of the locations. So that's something to be happy about. Some of the housing production plan priorities that it recommends, it assigns my office the responsibility to assess the staff capacity to actually implement affordable housing policy. The only personnel with any stated or informal responsibility for affordable housing have been the town planner, who's really primarily been involved with the permitting side, myself, who's the designated monitoring agent for the LIP units, and town council. Town manager and town council are very often constrained based on overall workload, and at times acutely is constrained. So the goal of the plan is to build, one of the goals of the plan is to build capacity to administer responsibilities that result from existing and new affordable units. So one thing the plan refers to is the potential, for instance, for a shared housing coordinator with neighboring communities. This is something that potentially LDS or a vendor like that could, it doesn't necessarily need to be a staff position, but I think it could be helpful to have capacity, whether that's a vendor, MVPC, or something like that, someone to help actually do the work. The next one is to create a housing trust under the state legislation. That gives much more flexibility to implement the recommendations in the housing production plan. Because, for instance, unlike the CPC money, which a specific proposal has to be voted by CPC, then voted by town meeting before the funds become available. Sometimes, let's say with the example of acquiring an existing house and flipping it, if a house becomes available, you might not have the amount of time to wait for all of that to play out. If you put in an offer on a house and your contingency is town meeting approval and potentially 6 or 7 or 8 months, there's probably not going to be a competitive bid. If you have a housing trust and the money is in the trust, the board of trustees has the authority to oversee that money. So it's a much more nimble funding mechanism. So that That would also put the town in a better position to exercise a right of first refusal to purchase the affordable units if they're made available and an eligible buyer isn't found in the amount of time. The town has the right of first refusal. Right now, that would be very difficult to execute. The stars would have to align in terms of town meeting dates and funding, but with a trust, that would be better. With a trust, you could, if you chose, you could provide direct financial support to low-income residents. And that's one of the strategies in the housing production plan. But to be effective, a housing trust would require some dedicated support, administrative, probably professional as well. And there's a couple of ways that could happen. There is a recommendation that I have to update the zoning bylaws to reflect the changes in local preference, because the language we have in right now basically requires up to 70%, which is really unenforceable. That goes back to years ago, and that should be updated to reflect that you actually need state approval. So that's all kind of groundwork, framework. Some of the policy questions that I have are basically, it's the town's, and this is, I don't expect you guys to answer this tonight, but it's a discussion question. Is the overall goal to create affordable housing opportunities kind of because it's the right thing to do, or to try to achieve safe harbor or outright compliance with 40B? And it's totally fine to have housing production because it's the right thing to do. But if the goal is to achieve safe harbor, it would lead to very different policy recommendations. And based on our subsidized housing inventory, and I asked Lynn Sweet this question point blank, and I said, this is my feeling, do you agree with this? And she absolutely did. And so based on our subsidized housing inventory, in order to actually comply with 40B, this town would definitely need to create a significant number of rental units, with 20 to 25% being affordable, because the state counts 100% of rental units as opposed to ownership. It only counts the affordable units. So in order to make up ground in a town our size, you would be looking at producing rental housing.
Yeah, we're looking at those young numbers. At the census, we're going to be 1,700 and something houses, most likely. That'll be our total. So 10% of that is 170, and less what's the number we have, 39 that we have now? 39. So call it 40. So we're down to 130 units we need to generate. So that means that to accomplish that the way it was just, doing it through rental, we'd have to have 520, 4 times 130, 520.
If it was ownership.
No.
Well, because in rental, they count 100%.
Oh,
so that's why I'm saying.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, right, yeah, so rental, okay, so 130 rental units, so
So you
even that.
could do it.
Yeah, you
but
could.
Is that what this community wants?
Right, but that would be, a total change in character for some significant portion of town, and of course, from a septic standpoint, it would require, a package treatment plant, and, it's, yeah. I mean, I think the realistic thing is we should do it because it's the right thing to do, and 40B, it is what it is, but we need affordable housing. We should do it because it's the right thing to do.
So Angus, the habitat route, if it's not a situation where we're ever going to get to a safe harbor on 40B anyway, so the fact that it counts or doesn't count is actually isn't so bad, because we're not going to get there anyway.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think Habitat's great. Both in Marshfield and Westford, we work with them and have really, and it's great because there's people who get a home that wouldn't have. I mean, it's terrific to be part of. So yeah, I think, and the main.
What are the sort of nuts and bolts issues in terms of, like you say, selecting who becomes the lucky family or whatever? How does that work?
So the affirmative,
Because we're dealing with public, you know, if the land was donated or whatever, or was sold for $10 or whatever, how does that work?
you mean in order for the units to be counted?
No, not to be counted, just so that it's not like you're violating public bidding laws. or
Well,
whatever.
that's, you know, I think that's a really good question on, you know, let's say there was a trust, a housing trust set up, and let's say it wanted to, you know, make available funds for direct financial assistance to eligible families. It would have the discretion, the trust would have the discretion to set what those standards are, whether income or assets, but it would then need the capacity to actually vet applicants, you know, to get the word out, put the word out, to vet applicants, to do that in a confidential manner, and to make decisions that are defensible, given that at the end of the day, you're dealing with public money. In Westford, where I was for a number of years, you know, when the trust was really doing quite a lot, had given some direct financial support to developers to help them build in more affordability than they would have, because Westford also had bylaws that required a certain amount of affordability, but the trust would entertain applications for developers to maybe provide 15% instead of 10% and provided direct subsidy.
Literally cash payments.
Correct. But then that would create an obligation, because it's public money, to basically have like a post, you know, grant audit to make sure that money was used, you know, that you actually got what you wanted. And I was there during the kind of formative years when they were starting, they'd issued some of these grants before I got there. And I was there during the period of time when, you know, when we had a new member of the housing trust committee who himself ran a housing authority. And he was, you know, he was kind of pushing, like, you have to, he was telling the rest of the committee, you have to, like, you're a grant making entity. You have to, like, follow this money and see how it's spent, make sure you have documentation and this and that. So it created like quite a lot of work that at that time in that town, there wasn't anybody whose job it was to do that. So, you know, we made it work, but it definitely was like not just a casual thing. It was, you know, it was the trust has a fiduciary responsibility for that money. So yeah, how it makes decisions on how to award, you know, who to award money to, making sure that's done in a fair and transparent way, you know, is a big deal. Even if you're dealing with dollar amounts that in the grand scheme of things aren't that big, it's still public money, and you need to, you know, really watch every dime for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Yeah, does anybody who's online on the Zoom call have questions or any comments? Ann O'Sullivan, I see your hand up.
Hi, thank you so much. I would just like to say I'm really excited about Angus's presentation. His fabulous experience with Westford and what they went through. I think it's really clear, if anybody does any homework at all, that West Newbury needs an affordable housing trust. Wendy knows that the planning board has some bylaws in place to set this up. It's a huge project. As Angus said, it can't be his job. It can't be some, you know, just random people stepping in to take care of this. It's a huge project. And I think the Affordable Housing Trust is a perfect vehicle to provide guidance for the town. There's no way, as you guys all know, that we are ever going to meet the requirements for 40B. It's not possible. So now we're at the point where we just have to do what's right. And we have to provide affordable housing for the teachers who teach in our community, for the highway department guys who live in our community. And the Affordable Housing Trust will provide us an opportunity to do that. And it's a transparent vehicle. It's just the best option. I've talked to Megan, who is the executive director of Habitat for Humanity. She is chomping at the bit to get into this town. She has great ideas for how to utilize town-owned property and how to develop housing. It's just, we have so many opportunities. We just need, we just need this Affordable Housing Trust to take control, take it off Angus's back, take it off your guys' back. Obviously, the Affordable Housing Trust is still accountable to you all, but just make someone responsible on a daily basis to get this thing done. It's the right thing to do.
So Anne, are you volunteering to be on the trust?
Yeah. Rick already did that to me. Yes, Wendy. Yeah.
She's already offered to be chair.
No, well, yeah. I offered to facilitate the meetings. God, you get. No, I will do. It's just, this is close to my heart. And the Community Preservation Act has funds. I don't really think that's going to be the ultimate funding source, but it certainly can provide funds to do a lot of the research that we need to have done. I have clients who do this for a living. I have one client, I'm not going to like sell you my clients, but I know that there are people who are in the business of setting up lotteries, and they know how to do this, and they know how to give local town preference to the teachers and to the preference to the residents who live in this town for these kinds of things. So there are ways to direct these affordable housing units to the people that we are trying to help. So.
So the question is, how do we start the engine?
Well, I think we have to put out the call. It is astonishing. You guys know, and Wendy will find out, the resources in this town, the people who live in this town. I'll call out Marty Mason. He is just a local guy who lives in this town who happens to be on the land acquisition board of Habitat for Humanity. Who knew? He called me and he was like, we need to get going on this. So there are resources in this town for people who are willing to volunteer, who we don't even know about yet. We just have to put out the call. And I am telling you, this town shows up all the time. They show up all the time. But what we need to do, honestly, we need to get the bylaw established that authorizes the Affordable Housing Trust. And thank goodness Angus has got great experience with this kind of setup, so we can rely on him to help us tweak that bylaw, and then just put the call out. I am telling you, this town will show up.
Angus, can the
right now?
Yeah, and people might, so Wendy just asked, we have an interim program, and we do. Yeah, the fund that we have is basically kind of modeled on a trust. It doesn't have the statutory framework, which is,
Exactly. Yep.
So it's important, and there's a number of reasons. I think it would be good to get that money into a trust, which is a known thing, defined thing. But yeah, what we have now is the regulations that were put in place earlier this year, or right around in the winter sometime. Basically, it authorizes my office without further appropriation to expend up to $10,000 within a single fiscal year for the purposes of primarily of monitoring compliance with the existing lift units in the event of resale. It gives us the resources we need, to have the work that LDS is doing for us. But it's not going to get us. It's basically a housekeeping kind of thing.
But one of the things LDS could do, we could contract with LDS to set up, to help us configure the.
That was my question.
That's part of their scope.
Right.
And so we wanted to, Leah and I wanted to make sure we had all the baseline stuff kind of well tied up. And so we will have another call with Lynn and her team in the next couple of weeks and get her more aware of kind of what our bigger policy objectives are. And yeah, she's going to be a great resource on how to set it up, what it's going to take to run it, what kinds of programs a trust can run successfully, and what kind of outcomes you might expect from that. And one thing actually we're going to start, pretty much, very soon is she recommended that we keep a waiting list for people who might be interested when any of these 13 existing ownership units go up for resale, which we don't have that. And that's easy. And we said, that's great. We'd love to do that. So Leah's going to be working to set up a dedicated page linked from the planning page, although we can link it from wherever. It's going to have some resources on first-time homebuyer assistance. There's down payment assistance programs. There's different things that are offered right now by different organizations in the Commonwealth that I think we can do a better job of helping people find those resources. And I also think having an office that's going to maintain a waiting list is great, because then when we do get that notice of resale of one of the 13 units, we have a starting point of people who, might end up in that unit.
As far as funding the trust, so we have that roughly $150,000 from the in lieu of
That's right.
payments, and that could fund, that funding could go into that trust.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about transfer from, obviously the CPC would need to recommend it, town meeting, and town meeting would have to approve it.
That's right.
But CPC funds and could also from at least the CPC or the housing portion of CPC and possibly some other fraction of additional funds could go into that trust as well.
That's right. Many communities who set up trusts do exactly that. They basically transfer the 10% or some amount direct into the trust and just continue to capitalize that resource.
Yeah, I guess the only reason you might not want to put everything there is, say, for the upgrades that have recently gone on with the existing housing, would we have, that was done with CPC housing funds, and would you be able to take money out of the trust to do that kind of work? Oh, you would?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the legislation, I should have thought to include it in tonight's packet, but I'll send out the statute.
Yeah.
It's actually, and you'll never hear me say this, it's actually a very well-written statute. I don't say that often about Massachusetts, but it actually is. It's clear. It outlines what you can use the funds for, the method, by which to use them. And it definitely would include improvements to existing affordable.
Okay.
So can I just ask a question? So my only concern is, I think there are two different paths here. One path is dealing with our existing housing and maintaining that. And I don't, maybe Angus can correct me, but I don't really see that as part of the role of the Affordable Housing Trust. I feel like the Affordable Housing Trust should be working in a forward motion, developing new housing, and there should be a separate agency or department or whatever to deal with existing housing and maintaining that housing infrastructure, whatever that means, whether it means repairs, whether it means tenants, all that stuff, whatever's existing, seems like it should be separate from the work that's done by the Affordable Housing Trust to develop new affordable housing units.
Yeah, and I don't think that the maintaining existing housing is a big deal. My only concern was that we not lose access to funds when there is, when there is maintaining or upgrade work required for existing.
Okay, got it.
That's long term, and historically, I think there's maybe only one time. Judy, you might know better than me because you've been on the CPC for a while. I think
Forever.
One instance where money went from the CPC to towards upgrading or repair of affordable housing.
It did.
And that's, we're just getting, I think we're probably done with that project at this point.
Did that project go?
Actually, it's not, they actually just today initiated the pre-construction meeting.
Oh, did they? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So they got their half of the grant?
Yeah.
They got the
Oh,
grant.
they went through.
Yeah, so just today, I got a note from Tracy Watson.
Great news.
Setting up
Great.
with Sam Goslin on the electrical inspector. She's got to, we got to make sure it's all like everyone's organized.
Yeah.
Because they're doing a bunch of work.
Yeah.
To all the units.
Rick, there were two other occasions when CPC funds were used for support of
Okay.
affordable housing.
Judy's right, the roof.
The roof.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also the repairs to the
The apartment building?
apartment.
Okay, all right.
I heard there's going to be a newly retired town council. Who lives right here in town.
Hi.
Who might
Maybe
be
you could join the Affordable Housing Trust.
It's vast institutional knowledge and
He'd be a great addition to the Affordable Housing Trust, Mike. We could strong arm a number of people into this.
So I guess what's the next step?
So I think this has been, at least I think this has been a really healthy conversation.
Yeah.
I think, we've talked about some of this, but we've never had the bandwidth to just sit and kind of talk it through. And I think it's great to do what you're talking about doing, establish the trust, go forward on some specific things, whether that's habitat or whether that's, any number of things. And I think Lynn Sweet and her team can be really helpful to us on helping to think about the type of policies that would be particularly helpful in a town our size. My main point was just that there's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in terms of protection.
Right.
That's really the main point I was trying to get across.
Angus, do we have to appropriate money to have them start a plan?
No, we've got, so under the regulations, I'm authorized to expend or up to 10,000.
Right, but have you spent that much?
Just the amount that's gone out for the monitoring for the 13 units. They did, their due diligence to basically review everything. So I think when all that's done, it's going to be less than half that amount. So there's going to be plenty of money to have Lynn come to a meeting, come to a number of meetings, get more hands-on with this community and what we're trying to do. So I think if, I will tell you, we tried to create a trust. Well, they had one in Westford. We tried to create one in Marshfield. This was back in 2005. The legislation was just passed in January. We brought a trust to the town meeting that spring. We thought it was a very proactive way for that town to help to deal with some of the challenges it was facing. To my surprise, so I'm giving this as like a lesson learned, there was a lot of pushback. It was an open town meeting form of government, and there were a number of people who felt that they didn't want town meeting to lose control. They didn't like the fact that this money was going to go into this trust, and that then this trust, which some people vilified I don't know, but this trust was going to now have control of all this money. So I don't know if that's going to be a dynamic here, but that was the pushback that I saw is you do lose, it's a totally transparent public body, everything's open book, but unlike the CPC process where that committee has to personally recommend every dollar that's spent, once it's in the trust, they do have the authority to expend funds. And that may mean there are sometimes that trust, it all comes down to who you appoint as trust and if they do.
So maybe this is
Absolutely.
a complication that isn't necessary, but is it possible for the trust members to be elected? For it to be an elected?
I'm pretty sure the statute specifies that that the composition, but I'll send out the statute and but let's.
I'm just wondering if maybe if people had a choice, if individuals had a choice to actually vote for who was going to be there, if it would change perception at all.
I haven't picked up on that sense in this community, but and I think remember this was the first time this legislation had passed. There wasn't. Now there's 15 years of housing trust and all the great work they've done. That hopefully there's no boogeyman that people are are strong.
But I think Angus is entirely right. If you appoint a group of people that you know personally the town trusts based on prior town meetings or based on their participation or based on their heart. I mean, you know the people in this town. If you pick a group of individuals that you know the townsfolk trust, they will be able to garner support for whatever recommendations they make. This town is amazing in what it will support when they know, the people that are doing the hard work. So maybe I just disqualified myself, but whatever. Anyway.
Cronin, on behalf of the planning board, I just wanted to mention before we leave this topic that we are addressing this tomorrow evening.
Yay.
Brian Murphy, is really anxious to keep this momentum going that kind of started with, a year or so ago. A lot of interest in that specific project, but what we are definitely looking for are, folks like Ann and the other folks that you mentioned who are interested in helping the town kind of keep this moving. And also really appreciate all the effort that Angus has put into this. You have a lot of knowledge on this, and that's really appreciated because this is not an easy area to get a handle on. And personally, the remarks that were made about where we stand and what's possible make a lot of sense to me. But that's just me speaking. The board, will definitely be looking at this more carefully, and that will start tomorrow evening. We've looked at it, obviously off and on since I've been on the board in the last couple of years. But tomorrow, what we hope to do is to have a good discussion about how we encourage folks to, more formally become involved in this effort. So that's at 7:00 tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. And I met with Leah. Leah's been great. She and I have been, hand in glove throughout this. And, she's got a really good understanding of all this. And she couldn't be here tonight, but she was definitely, interested in tonight's discussion, and she'll be briefing the board tomorrow night. And it sounds like there's a lot of alignment with how we want to go forward.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Thanks, Angus.
Thank you.
Okay, so see, we've got an update on the draft FY 22-24 Harbor Master Services MOU with the town of Salisbury.
Yeah, you've got the draft in front of you. And I spoke to Neil last Wednesday, just past Wednesday. If you have comments on whether what is in front of you is agreeable or whether there's any counter or different things, his board meets 2 weeks from tonight. We meet again 2 weeks from tonight. And so I told them the board may have additional comments. That's fine if you do. And then ideally we'll bring it, if you guys don't vote it tonight, we'll bring it back 2 weeks from now and try to get it executed before the end of this fiscal year.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it all looked great. The only question I had is, so we're being requested to pay, maintenance, storage, those kind of costs. I don't, $500 isn't a lot of money. Yeah, up to $500. But I thought from the information in the packet 2 weeks ago, or something we had in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I thought they'd spend considerably more than that. And
they have.
So we're actually paying. My recollection is it seemed like it was less than half of the cost.
That's right. Yeah, they
costs.
They have documented that they'd expended a little over $1,200 last year between shrink wrapping and all of that.
Yeah.
And that was their original proposal. And I talked to Neil last week. I said, Neil, the current agreement is that you're responsible for these costs. Now you're looking to flip it 100%. I said, what's it going to cost you to have a boat? I said, remember, we're providing the boat.
Right.
And he said, oh, and it was clear. It was clear he wasn't going to go to the math on this. So we thought, well, 500 seems fair. If you guys say you want to counter zero, I'll bring that, and we'll see, maybe they agree to that, but 500 is kind of the starting point. Tonight, his starting point was 1,200, but I pushed back a little bit on that.
Yeah, well,
I don't think 500 sounds unreasonable.
I don't think it's unreasonable.
nor do I. I mean, if we just consider the cost, place to store the boat, it's gonna cost you $500 or more.
Yeah.
For winter.
Way more.
Yeah. On my backyard. Just kidding.
So I know I sent you the PDF files with the Clean Vessel Act. After I sent it, I thought, I could have called that because they're like receipts for gas purchases, but that's what we get. So
Yeah.
I just sent it off. But within that, if you kind of go through it, you'll see how often it happens. And, I think they're very responsive.
It was more than I expected.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge number, but it was still more than, it wasn't 3. I thought it was gonna be like 3.
And I think 2 of the boats were actually, home port was West Newbury. I'm probably kidding. There weren't many. Most of them were somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's okay. They're not dumping in the river.
No, there were a lot of boats from West Newbury. Yeah.
Did you guys want to vote that?
Yeah, we need to go on the draft.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah, so, Senator, so we want to make a motion?
Yeah. I make a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement for the administration of services related to harbor master services between the town of West Newbury and the town of Salisbury, as delineated on page 74 of the packet.
And period, I think there's a 3-year agreement, right? Yeah. So through the end of FY 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On item G, I do have some new information just from earlier today. So it turns out the conservation agent in Merrimack has recently formally announced his retirement, effective the end of August. So what that means is both we and Merrimack we currently have a vacancy, as you know. They will have a vacancy. There's been some discussion and meetings. There seems to be completely broad agreement, and I met with Jay earlier today, and he was in total agreement from a future employee standpoint that it would be much better to apply for a single full-time job and have a job and not be balancing 2 masters and all of that. So yeah, the idea is to enter an MOU to partner with Merrimack to jointly advertise, jointly hire, and jointly oversee a conservation agent. As you can imagine, there's some details need to be worked out that would be worked out with the MOU, specifically on like how's the hiring decision made, what if there's personnel issues that arise, so there's some details, but conceptually there's broad agreement that it makes sense to pursue this. And so since KP Law is the primary town council for Merrimack and would be ideally positioned to draw up an MOU, both parties would need to affirmatively vote to consent that they would be agreeing, representing both parties in this matter.
So Angus, would it be like Newburyport, where we reimburse Newburyport for an actual Newburyport employee, or is this going to be employee of both towns? How do you think we would do this?
I think it'd be a lot better if it was, I think it'd be cleaner if it's an employee of both towns.
Well, you just said it was hard having 2 masters.
Well, no, but from a payroll administration standpoint, I think it'd be better. I guess so for instance, like when, over the years that Jay he had 2 separate jobs, 2 separate that he gotten at different times, 2 different management structures. And so, there were times, for instance, there were questions about, was there use of, West Newbury resources to do, you know, like computer, to do email, like those kinds of things are all like, I mean, I guess that's thorny issue that would need to be worked out. But it's like, it's not like this person's moonlighting, like it's known, everyone agrees that they're doing both jobs.
Yeah, there's a common understanding between the new two municipalities that he is
Yeah.
shared
So,
employee.
but for whatever number of hours, then 20 hours, Merrimack, 20 hours here, then, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it probably ended up a little bit more here, probably the 22 here that we've got budgeted, and they budget, it's changed by the month. It's like 58 hours per month. So it's roughly 16, you know, per week. So the combined amount is right about 40. But like the wages right now are a little bit different. I think it'd be cleaner if they were all the same. Our wages are a little bit higher. So there's some things we would want to work out. So I think it'd be great to have KP's representation. I think it'd also be, you know, you might want to designate either me or a member of the board to, you know, be more hands-on. I mean, I will be anyway, but ideally we can get to where we execute the MOU as, you know, once those details are worked out as kind of efficiently as we can, because we definitely want to get the position filled.
Has it been posted yet?
No, because until there was notice given, which I just learned today, and really until we have an agreement with Merrimack. So their select board meets a week from tonight. So assuming you guys approve this tonight, they would approve it a week from tonight. Hopefully soon thereafter, there'd be a draft MOU. We can work out the details, which should be a matter of one meeting, you know, ideally one working group meeting, just in the interest of getting it done.
The select board is already on board.
Conceptually, I mean, I haven't spoken to them, but their finance director is very supportive. Their Concom chair is very supportive, and I've been copying their select board chair.
Yeah, I remember, I don't remember to he or she, but they were considering sitting in on that meeting.
That's right.
That joint Concom meeting.
That's right, yeah. So.
I think the benefits may be a challenge to figure out who's paying for benefits.
It may be, I mean, I think it would be ideal to get some offset.
I'm sorry, Wendy, I couldn't
The
hear.
benefits,
How the benefits are paid, like the health insurance.
right now, they don't have enough hours to qualify for benefits, but we do, so.
So they reimburse us some portion of
that's
that, or,
what we
yeah.
have to negotiate.
We have to negotiate, yeah. I mean, right now, at 20 or more hours, our employees are going to be benefits eligible anyway. And they know that, Merrimack knows that, so you know, are they going to be willing to offset our costs? I think we should definitely put it on the table as a proportion.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're definitely, I mean, they're getting a benefit just in general, you know, because finding somebody who would work as their conservation agent at 15 hours a week.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, not only that, just it's easier for them to just write a check than have to deal with the administration of the benefits. That alone is a bit of a hassle.
Yeah, so we're gonna be without an agent though, come the end of June, so.
I don't think it's gonna be that clean a break. I think, you know, he's once, you know, because we met, you know, I met with Jay for probably 45 minutes today. It was a great conversation. We talked about a number of things. And once he understood that he can stay in Merrimack as long as he wants to stay in Merrimack, and that if, let's say, we get things posted by the end of the month and applications start coming in, and maybe we get a position offered, you know, maybe late July, that's maybe optimistic, but maybe it happens, and someone starts, you know, before he leaves, he can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And also, for what it's worth, he's authorized to spend up to 20 hours a week. He hasn't spent 20 hours in any of the weeks that he's been supporting us, and he didn't feel that he would need to, and he feels he's been getting the work done, and he said that Judy has taken on some of the work of drafting orders of conditions so that he's not having to put in quite as many hours. So I think his personal preference would probably be to cut the cord, but I don't, you know, he seemed to express that he's gonna help us out. So,
That's what he said in the beginning, so just a word of caution. And there's no, he's not an employer, I mean, an employee, you know,
That's
it's
right.
just, so it
That's
seems
right.
like a tenuous arrangement.
time is of the essence.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be hanging on by our fingernails, but hopefully they.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't we post it prior to ironing out all the details, or do you?
I'll talk to Carol tomorrow again. I mean, today was the first time that I
Yeah,
found out that it's official.
Yeah.
You know, he told me that he gave his written notice on Thursday. So I'll reach out to Carol McLeod, and she made me comfortable with posting. You know, if she feels her board's totally on board, it's just a formality to kind of work out the details. She might be comfortable to do that, but we'll see.
so do we have to vote on this?
You would need to vote on this representation letter. Or determination.
Who would like to make a motion?
Are we moving to accept it, or? What is the
So
proper-
I would recommend to
To
go to
accept the
determination as stated on page 80.
78.
The determination itself is on page 80. So it's the interest of KP Law as counsel to the towns is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to adversely affect their representation of the towns.
So it's like a conflict of interest? kind of
Exactly,
thing? Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So, and then if you choose to, you could take a separate motion to designate someone to sign the MOU on your behalf, whether that's me or whether, you know, something else, but that would allow the MOU to be finalized without, you know, so let's say they voted next Monday. I'm out of town through next Wednesday, so the odds of like having it tied up with a bow by the 28th are probably slim. So, you know, then we miss that and we lose 2 weeks because the board's not meeting, you know, so that, I think it'd be great if the MOU was, you know, if I was authorized to sign and work out the details, I can keep you guys fully apprised of that. It's up to you. I put that out there.
That's sounds fine.
This is
Yeah.
more, so we don't lose, you know, waiting for.
Yeah, okay, so I would move that we accept KP Law's determination that there is not a conflict of interest and they're representing both West Newbury and Merrimack for working at a shared services or, those called a shared services agreement with the conservation agent.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
This actually brought another question to my mind, not related to this particular agreement, but related to something that could conceivably happen relative to the Middle Street Bridge. I think I've seen KP Law reference the Newbury Ports.
Yes.
As Newbury Ports attorney.
That's correct.
So just curious, you know, it's conceivable at some point we might run into some kind of a conflict there.
That's a good point, and that's a more consequential
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
We could get this crack local attorney who knows all sorts of stuff to spot.
Okay, so I would make a motion to have Angus sign the MOU on behalf of the select board on an as needed basis if it will make things more expeditious.
Second. Discussion?
Is the motion all right with that qualification?
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys apprised. You know, if the stars align and it's ready for a board meeting, happy to have you guys vote it, but If not, and if it seems like it's, it always makes sense, it'd be good to.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it does work, that we could see it,
Yeah,
then that'd be
yeah.
good, but,
I'll send it around regardless.
Yeah,
You
okay.
guys will see it.
all right, great. So all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
To this determination, Tim has,
Yeah, we're gonna need, if you could sign this. and
Okay.
then, this is an original, but that'll be fine, and we'll just scan this and send that over to their
Okay.
files.
okay. Okay. Well, let's see. Next thing here, we've referred to multiple times already. Discussion of town council services upon retirement of Michael McCarron effective July 30th, 2021. So,
We could have announced that.
yeah, so exactly. So, be it known that Mike McCarron is our long beloved town council, town clerk, has announced his retirement for July 30th, 2021.
This beeping is real, I think.
The people rolling on the floor, has it hurt that much? No. Anyway, Mike, it's been great so far. No, congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. Time to go start living. So, yeah, so we have to consider what we're going to do for town council services going forward.
And procurement. Council
And
is
procurement,
less
right.
squarely in front of you, but
Right.
we've also given some thought to procurement, so
Yep.
if the discussion goes to that.
Okay. And, Angus's suggestion would be to ask KP Law for proposal for FY '22, and which I think makes perfect sense. We know them. We have experience. They're certainly a very credible legal firm for municipal law specifically. And then at the end of '22, we might want to put out an RFP and just see, RFQ, okay, an RFQ and look at alternatives, not necessarily because we anticipate not being satisfied with KP, but just because we ought to do that. So Angus, I don't know what you would like to add to that.
I just wanted to, I think that's great. I definitely, there's a lot of transitions ahead of us with Mike's departure, so, keeping that continuity of the outside counsel that's been very helpful to us in a number of matters. As general counsel, I think is definitely, the right move. Both from a continuity, but also just to not have to deal with purchasing and all that. So I think it's great if the board is agreeable to that. I did speak with one of the senior partners, Jonathan Silverstein, a couple of weeks ago, just to let him know that might be coming and to kick around preliminarily how do they price things. I don't think I've talked to the board about this, but I think I've talked with one or more of you one-on-one about this, that sometimes town council services are priced with like a baseline fee. It covers a certain amount of services with an hourly rate above that. Sometimes it's purely hourly. Jonathan's advice, he said they'll do it either way, but in his experience, he's been at this a long time, he feels the cleanest thing is just a pure hourly agreement, because if it's one or the other, if there's a base amount, he feels one or the other party is always, losing, because you don't know going in how much legal service you're going to need. So I think that's one of the things I wanted, if the board's in agreement with inviting a proposal, do you want to specify how you want the pricing to go? Do you want them to outline two different scenarios and then we have that option? this is, you know, new territory for us because we've had the benefit of in-house counsel with no, you know, incremental costs. So it's going to be helpful to get a better sense of how much support we need. I do want to say their hourly rate would be significantly lower than their special counsel rate that you see in the current contract. Yeah.
So Angus, how do we, not we, but how is it determined who's assigned to us? Like, what if we don't like the person that we have?
I think we definitely have some say in that. And
We do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you could in fact, I mean, you guys are the appointing authority for town council. So you can handle this however you want. You could invite a proposal and then invite them to a meeting, and you could have them, you know, you have their proposed, typically there's like a, you know, there's the primary town council who's the one who goes to town meetings and becomes known as town council. But then,
Oh, there is.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's someone who's like kind of the project manager for your town. And then, you know, they'll have different people working on labor or different contracts, or, you know, like Mark Rich help.
But there's one sort of like
Yeah, there's like a figurehead and so that's, for instance,
the general practitioner kind of thing.
yeah, so factors they'll take into account are geography. You know, they have some people on the South Shore, they have some people on the North Shore. They'll probably recommend someone on the North Shore. They also look at what their attorney's other portfolio is and when those town meetings typically are. So for instance, Tim Zessen, who's been our labor counsel, is the general counsel to Merrimack. So if our town meetings are likely to conflict, they're probably not going to recommend Tim, for instance. But I think if we, you know, I think we have a lot of say in that.
Okay.
So we could either invite them to propose who they think is the best fit, or we could invite them to give a couple of options. Maybe you interview a couple of people within the firm. So I think there's some, you know, maybe a good next step if the board, you know, goes forward is maybe we set up a call with Rick on the call as chair to talk with them about, you know, how do we make a decision to make sure we get a good fit for what our needs are.
Both in terms of the individual and the plan and the method of billing, essentially.
Yeah.
I kind of agree that with the concept that if you've got a flat rate thing for at least for, you know, a certain amount, you go, well, we didn't use enough of it this you know, we didn't use enough of it this month or whatever. I kind of like that, just
Pay as you go.
pay as you go. Yeah, that's just my personal feeling.
Yeah.
Or even to be the other way around. You know, I feel bad that we're overstaying our welcome on this. You know, what if we had a huge issue? I don't know. It just seems like whatever you do, you should get the.
One thing I like about the current contract, and this is language I put in specifically, is this kind of not to exceed cap. And that, you know, if I ask, you know, Tim, hey, can you do this? And he looks at it and says, that's a big work item. It's incumbent on them to let me know. We said 10,000, maybe the number's 5,000 or something, or 2,000 or whatever. But something where we don't inadvertently like run up a big bill and say, oh, we just asked you to rewrite our entire zoning bylaw. We didn't think it was going to take, you know, 400 hours. You know? So anyhow, I think that's got some protections in there for us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And even if they don't change the open meeting laws, I mean, you could always have someone have a Zoom interview too. Doesn't necessarily mean you have.
Yeah, that's right.
somebody come up, you could interview them remotely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we need a motion to propose that we ask, or to ask KP Law for a proposal.
Do we need a motion for that?
Not really.
No?
If everyone's in agree, I think, no,
Okay.
it's fine, because at the
Okay.
end of the day, it's going to be the
Okay.
proposal and the terms will all be
Okay,
before you.
great.
So if everyone's comfortable with that, that works for me.
Okay, so a couple of questions. I guess, assuming that it is KP, but whoever ends up being counsel going forward, hopefully we have that fully figured out, at least a couple of weeks before Mike heads off into the sunset. So that,
Literally.
right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that doesn't leave us much time.
So, so if you could, have some, high quality time with whoever our primary contact is going to be to do is, walk through as much as possible of what's currently in play that, that can't be resolved between now and the time.
We'll see about getting a proposal for the meeting 2 weeks from tonight,
Great.
and, hopefully make a decision that night, and then we'll enter a contract, and then we'll have the month of July for, I know Mike's been working on a kind of a summary of active issues and.
Yep.
But yeah, there's gonna need to be some knowledge transfer for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be really helpful. Thanks.
Great, I'll let them know right away.
Yeah, because I was thinking actually, so Soldiers and Sailor is gonna, which I know you're gonna talk about and at the end here, but that's gonna be sort of coming to a head in terms of putting out, going to bid and maybe contracting right around that time frame.
So the procurement would be the.
No,
Yeah, well, it's later on the agenda, but yeah,
Yeah,
we do.
yeah.
We do have.
why don't we just wait till the.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, yeah. Okay. Great.
Let's keep going. It's getting.
Yep, yeah, it's getting late, yeah. Okay, so, discussion of the process and timeline for select board completion of personnel evaluations. Or, I don't, this is the revised one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I put together the draft template. So I was looking for input from you, feedback, what you thought about it as a mechanism, and then, we can talk about the process and schedule.
Okay, I thought it looked like a great format to work with.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I didn't spend an hour with it. I didn't, I don't have specifics that I saw.
Okay, I mean.
But it looked, pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, so this is a compilation of other towns. MMA did not have one, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But I found several towns that had something similar to this, and then Angus provided his current job description, and I added a couple items from that to these categories. I mean, I think if this template seems useful, we could use this for other positions and just, use the job description to populate the categories and so forth. The one thing that I didn't, that I wanted some feedback on is the long-range planning, because there were only 2 items there. I don't know if I just wanted to add anything there, because there's only 2 categories. And then, other than this, I think it would be good to come up with some goals for the coming year. I think that should be on all performance evaluations, and then that would also help us to kind of prioritize what we want to focus on, what we want Angus to focus on next year. And then that would be a metric, for next year's evaluation.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Archie? Is it different than what you had used? Angus did also give maybe evaluation that you had done before, which is more general, I guess.
Yeah, this, the form is fine. Having done these before in the past, the board members would be for town manager, board members would be responsible for, somebody did inspections and somebody did, so we did these for a lot of the department heads. And I don't know if it was I'm not trying to be negative at all. I just don't know if the exercise got anywhere. It sounds sort of cynical, but we would sometimes do the same, you know, somebody would do the inspection, the building inspector, and somebody would do the finance director, or whatever it was. And then I don't know if we knew enough about how their performance was. I don't know if we actually had enough information to judge whether the performance, I guess that's for talking about other people, like certainly with Angus, we totally see what's going on, but in terms of expanding it to other people, I don't know whether I think that's Angus is the we're trying to make Angus the manager. So
I didn't
want to go to be doing other people.
No, this would just be for direct reports to the select board, but if the personnel committee like this, they could maybe modify it for Angus to use another, just to follow.
But it also might be useful. I mean, there are other positions that report, at least were responsible for appointing them. Does that mean?
Right, but I just don't, I've been telling you, it didn't, we didn't get, I felt it was more a learning experience for me to find out what people have been up to over the year or whatever, which is okay, but we don't need to do, we also don't need to create make work projects. I guess that's my.
No, but I think performance evaluations, although they're not always pleasant, it's good for employee morale, you know, to know that their job description is being paid attention to and the performance is being evaluated. I mean, it's really a mark of a good organization that has a strong evaluation program, but it just takes some effort to get it off the ground. So that's why I just wanted to focus on the town manager to start with, to try to, you know, see if we could work something out, you know, see what works and what doesn't. If other, you know, if Angus wants to use a similar model for his direct reports, but probably just want to keep it narrow in scope to start. But we are, I mean, under Angus's contract, we are supposed to give him an annual review.
Right.
I think it's important to do that. And it's something that he's interested in having done.
No, I think it's fine. I do think, and Archie, this maybe speaks to your comment about, you know, knowing what goes on. You know, you see certainly what I do for this board, but there's a lot of other things. So, you know, I think in any evaluation, I think the self-evaluation component is really valuable. That way, when the parties meet, I just think it's an important part of the process. Because there's, with anyone's job, there's the things the manager, or in this case you, the me see, but there's also all the other things that you don't, which is important to kind of evaluate the overall picture. So.
Yeah, I think that's, and that's partly why I'm suggesting this 360 model, because, for example, we're not going to know staff, you know, relationships, you know, so maybe that's a place where we get information from somebody else.
Right.
So, I mean, I just want to get a sense of the timing. We're already behind schedule to do this for Angus, so it'd be good if we have a plan, you know, and I'm happy to do the legwork on this if it helps things move forward. I think if we we are gonna do a model that involves more people, we have to identify who that's gonna be and get Angus's buy-in, you know, who he's comfortable with, so there's some details to work out. There's open meeting law issues, right, with how it's discussed and records and everything, so it's the process.
So do you have a timeframe envisioned?
I would just like to keep working on it.
Yep.
Maybe end of July, do you think that's reasonable, Angus? Having been through this process, probably in other jobs?
I think it depends on the process. I think if you know, if you're putting out, you know, you and I spoke earlier today, and, you know, we talked about, I think getting input from like staff is great, really valuable, getting input from probably chairs of boards, committees, commissions, but, you know, as opposed to like, you know, 28 boards, committees, and commissions having agenda items about how the management's going.
Yeah.
Like,
So
so,
it should be a selection, I think.
yeah, or maybe it's those that I have the most, you know, like there's different committees that I do quite a lot of work with that you may or may not know about the work that gets done, but it would be important to understanding kind of the big picture. So maybe that's better than just you know, like a blanket, you know, like Historic District Commission is a good example, one that I really don't have any involvement with, but there's others like, you know, River Access Committee or Park and Rec Commission or others that, you know, I have quite a bit to do with. So I think that all, you know, how much input you want, how much time you want to give.
I mean,
people to
we're really
respond.
getting into the weeds. if
Well,
you-
I'm just going by what's in
Yeah.
the memo, but so if, you know, depending on how wide a net you cast, that all takes time for people to respond to you and then synthesize it and then meet with me. So it's, you know, so you said end of July. I don't know. It depends on how wide a net you're casting.
Yeah.
But if you're inviting potentially upwards of 50 or 60 people that give you raw material.
No, that is not. what I
Well, but
said.
if you look at all the employees and then a rep, you know, could easily get to, you know, maybe that's a bigger number, but 30 or 40, it could easily get to that kind of
Yeah.
number. depending
So
on how-
how would, if we wanted to do like a Google form survey, I mean, when I did the library director's evaluation, that's what I did for staff. I made the form, I cleared it with Corinne, so she was aware of what I was asking. And then, because anonymity can be a concern with staff people, they don't want to, if they have constructive criticism, they may not feel comfortable being named. So that's one way around it. I mean, is that okay with open meeting law? If you have,
The staff members aren't subject to open meeting law.
okay.
It's
But
just
I
the
mean-
board.
Right, so, but if we are discussing something obtained anonymously, is that appropriate, do you think, for?
You can attain, you can do that. The problem is it is anonymous and therefore, you know,
Right, so you have to take it with a
it
grain of
is,
salt.
you have to take, but also that all of that is public documents. So, I mean, you have to kind of, you know, put it in that context too. I think that, you know, you have to take into account a little bit the staff situation with the end of the fiscal year coming up and all the way through July 15th, because that's when we have to close it. It's going to be a very busy time
Yeah.
for, especially for Angus's office, but basically for every department because we're closing it up. So really,
Maybe end of August.
well, kind of the mid-August 15th would be a better time
Okay.
because you might have a better window there. But also to be concerned because right around August 15th, you're going to be starting to look into the fall town meeting. And you're going to have, you know, you're going to be asking department heads and everything to, you know, if they need to discuss anything that needs to go on in the fall, now would be the time to do it. So you kind of want to avoid, you know, too much interaction up until July 15th, but then you have another month from there where I think, I mean, we'll run into vacations, that's the time, but that's the time to do it.
Okay.
Because, you know, you don't have any statutory time between that. You're gonna have the auditors in,
We've got them coming in early this year. Remind me again, is it like September 16th, sometime around there?
September 13th.
The voice from above.
Like, where did that voice come
which is about, which is about 5 weeks earlier than we have in the past. So we're already, working toward audit and being ready for audit. So that's.
So, I mean, yeah,
Okay.
that's
Well,
just my.
good.
Well,
That's a good
on
suggestion.
an individual level, the survey would take 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
I would say that if you send something out to different people, it would be important that, one of the questions, if you want it anonymous, there ought to be enough that someone's describing what type of interaction they have with me. Because obviously some staff, I work very closely, others, there's less, interaction. So it'd be good if you're getting comments to know is that from someone who's works with me every day, that I only see every, week or two, just so kind of. gives you
Yeah, how to
some
gauge
context.
the feedback.
Yeah.
So how about if I draft a form, and I mean, I want your input on it, I think that's
Sure.
fair,
Yeah, I'd be
So I'll
happy
do
to.
that for the next meeting, and could you come up with a list of department heads that you feel like would give the most representative?
Yeah, I mean, as far as department heads, I would say include everybody.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying.
But I was thinking like, staff, some staff I work with, quite a lot. And others, I it's more like their department head, like anyhow, so.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
but yeah, we can work on that, for sure.
And then do we want to ask for input from anybody in the community? I mean, were there people on your hiring committee that you think would give good input?
I think so. I mean, some of those people have ended up being people I've worked with really closely. Others, Bill Backrex moved out of town, Catherine Conrad, she's been, not so much involved, just with for a couple of personnel committee meetings. I think what would be helpful, and actually I think would be illuminating anyway, is if I provide a list of the boards and committees that I've spent the most time with, that would probably be a great gauge. Now, if you hear from others that aren't on that list that think they should be and think, hey, we think the town manager should be spending more time with us, that's worthwhile input too.
Yeah.
But I think if we start with those, obviously with this board, then finance committee, capital improvements committee, some of those that are like right in my wheelhouse of like direct responsibility, to then those that weren't necessarily when I was hired 3 years ago, but have ended up becoming major investments of time, whether that's Park and Rec Commission or at times River Access Committee or Harbor Committee, certainly Personnel Committee. Some of those are, I think it would be good for you to hear from at least a representative of those. But it does get a little dicey because if they say, well, I got to review this with my committee and then we got to get an agenda and that, that's a time lag, but also, so it might be better to deal with individuals rather than necessarily like committee representatives. But I shouldn't get to cherry pick who you talk to. I mean,
No, but I think you need to have a role in it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's important.
But I think that the people, that I work with most closely are obviously those who are going to have the best sense of the kind of work I do. So.
All right. So what do you guys think? Archie, you seem to be not engaged with this.
I just have had a lot of, in my other careers, just, I'm not a fan.
No, I think it's valuable. I think it's worthwhile. But quite honestly, I spent most of my working life working for myself, and the only person who could evaluate me was me. I always did really well. So.
All right, well, I will keep plugging. I'll refine this. If you do have input and want to provide it to me, that would be great. But what I would really like help with is the goals for this year, because I think we never had our retreat to talk about what our priorities were. So if this might be a form to do it, if you just want to give me some feedback in these different areas where you think our goals should be, that would be helpful.
Okay,
Okay.
So we'll have an update at the next meeting.
great.
With the
Yeah.
potential Google
Yeah,
form,
yeah.
list of people to
And
contact.
and hopefully I won't have 10 hours of other reading to do, just so I can actually,
Sounds
but of
good.
course, there will be another 10 hours.
Yes,
if
there always
There
is.
always is.
So is the review before town meeting the only, is that in your new contract as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that gonna put us to do a double review before next town meeting as
I
well?
mean, you know, obviously, you know, we negotiated a new contract during that time, so it wasn't a formal performance evaluation, but, you know, it was opportunity for airing issues, good or bad. I mean, I think, you know, my first year, you know, I know I sent you that packet, and so I sent a memo to the then chair in January to say, hey, just a reminder, this is part of my contract, I want to make sure it didn't get missed. And as it was, it went right down to the wire with it happening on the very night of town meeting. But that illustrates how busy we are. Like, that wasn't that we weren't aware, it was just that we are so, and not just me, this board is so busy, as you know, that things, it's just, you know, you can't do everything that ought to get done. And so then last year, you know, I probably would have sent a similar memo, but, you know, then along comes COVID, and it was like, that just wasn't even in the cards. And then this year we started talking about my new, you know, contract or proposed contract. I think we started talking about that, I want to say like
in November.
Thanksgiving, you know, like
Yeah.
fall. And so that was kind of an agenda item for a number of meetings. And so, you know, it did cross my mind over the winter that I should probably make sure, but I will tell you, part of me thought like, you know, it's the board's obligation under the contract, and I do a lot, you know, for this town, and I'd like to think I uphold my end of the contract, and, you know, I guess I didn't feel, you know, it's the board's
not your
job.
job.
It's not really my job to
Right.
honor your side of the contract.
So what I'm
I've got to honor
asking you,
my side of the contract.
what I'm asking you is if we're gonna get back on track and we
Yeah.
know we need to do another one in April,
Then I think, yeah,
should we
that's,
do one now and then another one in April?
yeah, I think
Okay.
that makes sense.
All right.
I would just say that, you know, in setting goals, obviously, I would say the starting point would be to look at those things already underway,
Yeah.
whether formally or informally. I mean, one of the things that, you know, you and I talked about earlier today was, for instance, when the recent CPC projects went through the process. And Rick, you were at these meetings with the Whetstone Greenway and with the Mill Ponds All Persons Trail. And the question was asked specifically by the CPC at the meetings, who's going to manage these projects? And it was kind of said, well, it's going to be kind of some combination of me and Wayne. Like, Wayne and I manage a lot of projects. So those are things that, whether this board endorses those from me spending my time or not, I have, you know, there's expectations in the community that I'm, so like when I outline my kind of portfolio, I just don't want to see, let's adopt 12 new priorities without acknowledging that the priorities we already have are it's going to be a lot. to
Oh,
get
right,
those
right.
done.
No,
So
I wasn't
that's my
suggesting
main,
adding new
you know,
ones. I'm just talking about
Yeah.
prioritizing. ones.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
yeah.
we talked about housing tonight, which has been on the list, so
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Part of prioritizing is saying what you're not going to do.
Yeah, That's the first time I've heard that. That's good.
Yeah, it's
All right.
good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so we've got the Learning Tree lease coming up for renewal. I think it ends at the end of this month, and it seems like there's a little bit of dithering going on.
There's a little, yeah, and, you know, after that, it's not like, you know, it's not, at that point, it would become a tenant at will, just like as if you were renting an apartment and the lease was up, it goes month to month, so it's not like tenant doesn't stay there, it's just there's not a, you know, their interests aren't protected, so it being a longer term lease. So
Besides this issue of mowing the little patch of grass.
Yeah.
Are there any
That's it. I mean, I basically said, you know, that the terms I've put on the table are holding the rent level. And instead of, you know, mowing the lawn, we provide a mower. Yeah. I said, if that's not agreeable, what's the counter? Is it that we continue to mow the lawn? But basically, I mean, my feeling, it's, anyhow, I don't want to get all into it, but, it takes resources to go mow that lawn, and it's not a public.
Yeah, no, I think either we give a mower and they take care of mowing the lawn, or, we figure out how much time we put into mowing the lawn and the rent goes up that much.
I think that's fair. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at.
I mean, that's what it seems to me, it's pretty silly, and as we were talking about, I think I talked with Wayne about it too, they leave toys strewn around the lawn, and, so whoever's supposed to be mowing the lawn has to go pick up toys in the lawn sometimes, so that they can then, first they have to haul a mower there, and then they have to pick up toys and mow the lawn.
Yeah, and as you know, our limited crew there's constantly a backlog of maintenance and duties on public land. So why are we spending limited resources on effectively private land?
Yeah.
So why would we provide a mower to them? Why don't they just contract their own landscape?
I mean, that would be an even harder line. I think what we talked about of providing a mower, that's a fair question. I think it could advance the town's, climate in a small way. I think your idea of an electric mower is a good idea, whereas if, that's probably not what would happen if we don't make it happen, and it is. So, I'll give her a call. Most of our correspondence has been by email, but I'll give her a call and see if I can't get to. I had hoped that I might have a counter by tonight, or at least ideally an agreement for tonight. But today I didn't have any time today to follow up on it. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, hopefully.
Do you know, Angus, how she's doing? Did she get more people after?
No, I don't really have any insight.
Has it been opened?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Wayne did come up with a number on an estimated annual cost, but he was going to work that up further with some more detail. So I can probably hold off on sharing that at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very supportive of the business. I just think it needs to be everybody needs to do their share. Okay. Discussion of anticipated process, timing for review or revision of town personnel policies.
So we
actually touched on that a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, we did. I think, and so I'm going to recirculate. There's a memo from July 2019, and I gave a lot of thought to it. It's a nice one pager. It's not this lengthy thing. It's very targeted on what I think the short list is on the personnel issues.
Yep.
And then I think the two issues where we're really going to benefit from outside support are the personnel policy itself, as well as the whole, exempt, non-exempt determination. And as you know, we've received proposed scope earlier today from KP. So my thought would be to go ahead and authorize both of those to go forward. We do have funding in the current FY21 budget that we set aside for those purposes. So I think between their work, our work, and I think with the personnel policy, once we have some draft revisions, to bring those to that committee as like a sounding board, I think makes good sense. It is going to be important to me that some of the meetings that we have to really try to get staff much more involved. They're going to have to be daytime meetings. It's, we don't want to have night meetings. So no one's going to go to those.
Right. And if they do, I'll have to pay them overtime.
I will say I was surprised when we put out that notice back in April for the bereavement, and we posted it everywhere. We put it in everyone's mailbox. I thought we would get more input.
Yeah.
We didn't. But I think some of the people, especially some of the longer tenured employees, to the extent there's aspects of the policy they don't like, I think they've made that known over the years, and maybe there's cynicism. So I think when we actually do this and try to make some changes, people will see, hopefully that'll help.
Yeah.
Morale.
Yeah.
Because I feel like some number of people feel like they've been saying some of these things for a long time.
Yeah.
Hasn't really gone anywhere.
Okay. Yeah. It'd be good to get stuff squared away. Okay, so, next it's the update on the recent Eagle Scout project at the Alms House Cemetery. So probably everybody sitting here is aware of the project. There we go. There's a picture of the crew. And the Alms House Cemetery, which is up at the old, at what's referred to as the town forest, which is sort of the top of the hill on the south side of Mill Pond. It's an old cemetery for people who had no resources and had lived in the Alms House, which is the house for, I guess you could call, say, indigent people in West Newbury back a long time ago, 100 plus years ago, 150 years ago. And anyway, there was an old cemetery. There were 4 walls laid out in the woods, and it was substantially overgrown with a lot of dead wood and trees down and stuff like that. And it was an Eagle Scout project, and they trying to remember his first name, Cade, it was Cade Dennis. Did a good job. Looks a lot better. There's a sign now saying what it is, so it's kind of neat. It's a little historical note for the town. The only thing I note is that unfortunately there's a little, I'll just say miss or lack of communication, and somebody went up there. I mean, it is town-owned land, it's conservation land, and somebody, without getting the okay from anybody, went up there with a tractor or some piece of heavy equipment and moved stuff around. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
It's all addressed, right?
As well as it could be, given the circumstances. Yeah. But the end product is a big improvement. So I guess that was the means to the end. The next item is a discussion of regional energy planning assistant grant opportunities. So through Mass DOER and through the Green Communities Program, we're eligible for a couple of different types of small grants, which would be administered by MVPC. So there should be no burden at all here. One of them would be to potentially help us with our annual report. We may not get that because we've done the annual report for a bunch of years, but it does take resources by somebody. The town doesn't have that somebody as a paid employee, so it would be helpful if we were able to get a grant to do that again. And the other one would be to work towards essentially a zero net energy or zero net greenhouse gas goal, to just develop a plan. So I know this is kind of just being dropped on the board, other than me. But ideally, what I would hope is that we would vote and approve to apply for the grant, which we might actually conclude the Energy Committee, Energy Sustainability Committee might conclude, does it make sense to apply for? But the problem becomes a timing issue, as always. So the grant is due July 9th. The committee doesn't meet again before then. The Energy and Sustainability Committee agreed that we should ask this board for approval to apply for the grant. We don't meet again for another 2 weeks, and there really is no timed leeway at all. Either we do it if we conclude that we have the resources and that it makes sense, the time resources, or we just walk away from it.
How much of
So
it?
It's not a lot of money. So
it would be assistance to get help with the report, which we do anyway.
Yeah,
Well, there's these other categories too, right? Which.
right. Well, so just so you understand, when it comes to report, I'm actually the one who does that.
Right.
And I'm running out of time. So if we could have MVPC help again, because we did this grant 3 years ago, and we had enough funds to carry us for 2 years. You got a question, Mike?
But yes, if this is the same grant, actually, my recollection was it was MVPC that applies for the grant.
Right, but we need to get permission for MVPC to apply for the grant.
Right, so we're not making the application, we're not filling out the grant stuff, it's all
Well,
being done there. So
Yeah,
all you're doing-
but the Energy and Sustainability Committee will have some, there'll be some involvement in making it happen.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, but essentially, it's important to know is that it's not coming from us, it's, so the reporting of it and how it's spent and getting the money doesn't come to the town, it goes to MVPC.
Yeah.
So they're responsible for it, so all you're doing right now would be to vote to authorize MVPC to apply for the grant on your behalf.
That's probably better phrasing. Thank you.
So can you clarify what we'd be applying for? Is it all 4 of these?
No, it would be,
Just
what page are you on?
existing green communities, page 120?
Yeah, it would be 2 existing green communities tasks,
Which would be the
which
reporting?
would be the reporting.
Okay.
And then it would be 3.
Which is what we
Net
talked
zero
about
plan.
last meeting, right?
Well, that was actually more a policy.
This is actual, how does that differ? in terms of-
Well, this would be developing a plan, a community-wide plan, first a municipal plan, or, well, there actually are 2 different ways to do it. One is a municipal plan, which only addresses the municipal energy use, and the other one is a community-wide plan. And, and this is definitely forward-looking. I mean, so the goal is net zero by 2050, but, I'll probably be dead by then, but, not that I want to be, but,
We'll freeze you.
great. But
That's energy
but-
inefficient.
Yeah, right. Good point, thank you. Yeah, just let me run. But, we need to start. The sooner we start,
Right.
then the sooner things actually happen. So, and
So is
we're all yawning, so I don't really want to eat up.
Well, all right, so I just want to understand, so
Okay.
MVPC is applying for the grant, and we would be one of the communities that they would be working with? or
Yes.
just- Okay,
Exactly, yeah.
so it's in their best interest to get a grant for the whole region, right?
Well, it wouldn't be a regional grant, though. It would be, I mean, they're working with a number of communities, but I'm sure they've got a tranche of applications for different communities that they'll be submitting.
Okay. Yep, do we need to vote?
Probably.
All right, so. So I would move that we let MVPC know that we are interested in receiving technical assistance during the grant performance period of September 2021 to May 2023.
Second.
Is that adequate?
I was saying, and to authorize them to apply for a grant on,
On
our
F1.
behalf.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll probably be back with more info for next meeting, I hope.
Hey, Rick, not to prolong things, but when you do look into it in terms of scope of what you might like the grant to cover, I wonder if MVPC would consider helping with the green community under the LTA, the local technical assistance. Because if they would, then maybe you'd have the grant focused on the other aspect of it. Because, we're allocated a certain number of hours of LTA hours each year anyway.
And do we have excess? Because I know, I
Yeah,
remember,
we do.
okay.
Yeah, my first year, we were really proactive and we used all of them.
Yep,
But
okay.
since that time, honestly, this is something that I don't do as much because I have to go through hoops locally.
Yeah.
Like when Karen Kennard was in charge, she said, I submitted them, but now it's reverted, it's Brian Murphy, so if I have a project, I gotta go, and it's Brian, I got a lot of other things.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've left, in my opinion, we've left hours on the table. Because
Yeah.
we've set up our own hoops to jump through to
Yeah.
even go to that.
Is it based on fiscal year?
It's based on fiscal year,
Yeah.
and my recollection is it's about 70 hours, maybe more, per fiscal year that we're entitled to.
Yeah.
And so, in my experience, you have to get on, their work plan early in the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Because just because you're entitled to it doesn't mean you get it. You have to kind of get your.
Right,
place in
when
line.
there's only 700 hours left in the year and you have 70 communities looking for 10 hours
Exactly.
apiece.
So, yeah, so I think clarity of objective early is helpful.
So what departments would be eligible for or what would have the most use for those hours?
Like mapping is always a good one. We had them help with stormwater.
So conservation as well, right?
Yeah,
Would be-
yeah, we had them do some work in mapping the historic property inventories and getting those into the online mapping, although I don't know if that was LTA or if that was a separate contract. But with Gerard now, the director up there, he knows our community really well.
He's new
He's
director.
the new executive
Oh,
director.
no kidding, okay.
Yeah, that's very recent.
Yeah, okay.
So, and Christian's doing a lot more with mapping and kind of getting our data accurate. So there's some opportunities for LTA to put that to use.
So is there some department that could keep track of things could Christian do that if he identifies opportunities, just to keep a running list?
He could, I was doing it.
Yeah.
And then I just, it became,
It's too difficult.
well, I'd have to contact Leah, she'd have to get it on the next agenda. And it's just like, it's just, anyhow.
So who set up that hoop? Do we have to go through?
It's got to have the signature of the town's
Representative.
MVPC rep, which is Brian.
Yeah.
But whether that's, like a perfunctory thing or like a back and forth, and it's just becoming a back and forth. And it's like, you know what? I gotta know what to do.
Yeah. Okay. The next item, I just sent the email today to Angus and he forwarded it to people, and it really isn't fair to expect that people will have had time to read it. There wasn't that much there, but, it's following up on the comment last time, the policy change, new policy regarding, it's not a packet. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, it's the email.
Yeah, so maybe we could take that up next time.
Well, I did, I circulated it to
Yeah.
key department heads, and I was in touch with Rick, and he agreed that we should also send it to FinCom and capital improvements. But the departments have it, and I've asked for any comments back by next Thursday. And I've said if they need more time to review it with their respective board or committee, to just let me know that by next Thursday. So for your packet on the 28th, you'll have comments back from some departments, maybe all, and others may say they want more time, but you will have some feedback for your next meeting on the idea.
Okay, great, thanks. And meeting minutes.
I reviewed them, but I can't vote.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and the ones on the 26th, we actually got after we closed out the packet, so those are not in your packet. We did get them, but they weren't in time, so.
Okay, page 137, Article 7. It says, I don't have the thing in front of me, but I made a note. It says slide instead of glide, or it didn't make any sense. Page 137.
Oh, this 137, 138 here, and this Article 7 now. Article 7. Article 7, transfer to resolve deficit result from over expenditure of funds from.
No, that's not,
Okay.
that didn't make sense.
So are these minutes done from the televised
Yes,
by like a minute's taking service or?
correct, yeah.
Probably not cheap.
Well, we worked out a good, I think a good deal for next fiscal year.
I don't even, at this point, I don't even care.
Sounds like we need to do a word search for.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 26th and April 12th,
Yes.
2020.
I think it's just, you
Right,
just
this is
have the
12.
one set.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just have the 12.
Okay.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Same.
So this just brings up one quick question. When I read these, it occurred to me, I have to ask this. Has Cortland Lane been recorded?
It has not. I have been in touch with our.
We have 100 days? That's it, right?
120 days.
120 days.
Yeah.
We just don't want to do that.
No, I know. I was in touch with Sharon Everett. She was the council who got it up to that point.
Okay.
I sent her a note probably 2 weeks ago, shortly after town meeting, saying it was approved, what are the next steps, and she was gonna look at it and get back to me. So I'll make sure to touch base with her before I leave town.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same panic. I was like, we cannot drop the ball on that. But good looking out, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good, Rick. That's good.
Sure.
So Angus, your show here.
Okay, yeah, so just some quick updates. I'll keep these really brief.
Real brief.
Yeah, so Soldier and Sailors, I got a note from Lynn Spencer yesterday with some more details. Generally, it's consistent with what I said, but a little more detail on like the bidding timeline. So I can forward that to you. We want to engage a vendor to help with the procurement and contracting process. And part of what they do is kind of an independent review of proposals received and responsiveness. And that's been part of the project budget right along. We carried a certain percentage in the CPC application. And it's going to be really, really important for this project because there's some complexity with bidding. And I would have said that months ago, but now with Mike leaving, it's especially so. So we don't need any approval for that. It's in the budget. But I wanted to make you aware, I did have a conversation last week with a vendor who Lynn Spencer referred me to, who comes highly recommended, specializes in historic restoration projects. We're also very close. We're down to the last one or two items on the borrowing bond council requirements. So we've had some more back and forth today on that. But that's all going fine. Page Playgrounds, is that official yet? Or is
It
it?
is, Wayne had, what was it, Wayne and I, as a selection committee, have selected basically a lead what was it? O'Brien, basically, to provide us with a proposal. So we haven't settled like on it, but basically we said, we reviewed all the different proposals, we gotten the input as of last Friday from any interested individuals. And on Monday, Wayne had a discussion with a couple of hours actually with O'Brien, and basically said, we want you to, this is what we want you to do for us. And, then we'll see it. And if we like it, then we'll enter into a contract. So officially, they haven't been designated. It's like now we've given you the opportunity to be designated.
So that's kind of with the RFQ process that you negotiate with the top ranked firm and put those on a contract for you to kind of get close to the details. So that's been a major effort. Well on track. The HVAC, Rick, this was more for you. You'd asked me for an update. Wayne sent me an email.
Yeah,
I figured I'd just
that's all. Okay.
put it in a memo. That way you guys are all kind of aware.
Yep.
Hiring processes, that's going to be a big, impact on my office for the next 6 or 8 weeks anyway, because I receive all the applications, put them in a spreadsheet, send all the acknowledgements,
And this is for which positions?
So there's 5 positions that, so far we've advertised 3, but there's 2 more coming. So we've advertised assistant town clerk and the water laborer or the experienced operator. We will be advertising the conservation agent and the finance support position. So we've got to come up with a job. The first one, you know, the situation. The second, we've got to come up with a job description. And, you know, as I noted in there, you know, we got these draft layouts of different kind of office layouts, and I've circulated these around, and of course, everyone's got a different opinion.
So is the reason for that because you're adding an additional person?
Correct, yeah. Largely, yeah, because they wouldn't fit in the current suite. So that drives the need, but at the same time, we're looking at overall customer service, you know, kind of point of entry, like who's managing the desk. And so for instance, like right now with a treasurer collector on her desk being right there, she's got sensitive information about property foreclosures or Elliott Fund, like on her desk, and there's people, it's just not really good. So we're looking at some operational things that would be better with, you know, the new person being like at the counter and the treasurer collector having a little more, you know, to be able to do bank reconciliation. It's very difficult to do that kind of work when you are the point of contact. So it's driven by the addition of a body, but we're looking at different kind of operational, how can things work most efficiently.
So is getting rid of the select board desks part of all of those options? I mean, I'm just wondering, like, what's going to happen to the files? It's nice to not have to have
The files is one of the open questions, so yeah, we don't know. I think that that's probable, but it's not certain. So I can report back on this in 2 weeks and let you guys, you know, I was going to include all this in the packet, but we already have so much in here. And I'm still getting staff input on what people think would work. But I do think that that's, you know, pretty valuable square footage in terms of like office space. And right now it's basically vacant, you know, most of the time, and we can't really afford, like, we need the space. So, so we have to figure that out. So.
Good. So we'll talk about that more next time. Okay, great.
And then on the town clerk, you know, what we've set up in the past with job descriptions under my appointing authorities, when I make revisions, I share them with you informationally. So you have the redlined changes of what, you know, what changed between what Mike's job description is and what was posted for just the town clerk without town council services. And there is a typo in here, but other than that, I think, you know, we made some really, gave it a lot of thought. I think it's a good, very good job description that we posted.
So we're at the end of the agenda.
Oh, and then we had the discussion with a revised agenda of the select board email account.
Oh, that's right.
Which I forgot to put on the original.
I didn't see that on the revised one you sent out.
Oh, it
Can I
is.
still
It's
talk
on the
about it?
revised one.
All right.
Yeah,
So-
it's like item W.
All right, 2-minute discussion.
Okay.
So Angus had suggested that as clerk, I take over the select board email account. So I'm just looking for, I don't want to forward everything, so I'm just curious what you want to see. I get a lot of stuff from MMA about workshops. One option is to have that be a standing agenda item, and then every 2 weeks, if there's something that came up, I think you should know about, I could just give a brief update. Just looking for feedback on how you want to handle it. The other thing Angus and I talked about is maybe making that more of a dedicated way for people to get in touch with the select board. Just put out an email blast saying, you know, contact this email if you want to provide input. I'm happy.
How much activity is there?
A lot. A lot of it is junk, but there's a lot of listservs. I forwarded, I think, the woman's complaint about no pond dogs this week.
Yeah.
We got a lot of emails about the school. It's some form about school funding that we've gotten from Merrimack.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
Angus actually forwarded that.
Yeah, so I have it running. That's 6 of those are from West Hampton residents.
Yeah.
Just from all the time. So just in general, I'm looking for guidance on what you want.
I kind of like like if there's, something from the, from the Commonwealth or something, I actually want to see that. I do read those things. And I read a lot of the stuff from MMA, I do.
All right,
I think it would be, like ads from things, but commercial things, no, but,
So MMA, state, things from the state, you want to see?
yeah, anything from the state.
Yeah, like DLS will send different things on local aid.
I'd like to see those, yeah.
Like when it's certainly when free cash is certified, I get a letter, but so does the select board account.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'd probably be worth seeing it all. I guess, we should be, so you're not having to make a choice.
Yeah.
Whatever Archie wants to get, I'll take it. If I don't want it, I'll just file it or delete it.
Okay.
The MMA stuff I already get, but,
Make it so you don't have to.
Yeah, make it so you don't have to think
You don't
about it.
have to think about it,
Yeah,
then the more you think about it, the more work it is and stuff, yeah.
All right, I just don't want to forward too much stuff.
No, I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that, I just
As long as it's not
flip
another
through it,
50.
yeah.
And I would say in general, you don't need to copy me on that stuff. 'cause
Yeah,
I
I've seen you
already
get it.
have that visibility, so. If there's something that comes in that's time sensitive that you're concerned, to make sure I see it, by all means send it, but as a general statement, no need to copy me. Part of my goal is to have less email coming to my account and more going to that account, which is going to be great.
All right, great.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to be really quick. First thing. Master plan, comprehensive plan. Can we talk about that in a couple of weeks?
Yes.
Or even in 4 weeks? Okay, but soon, can we just talk about it? And I know, Archie, in the past, you've been a little skeptical that it was worthwhile, but
I'm just not one of those people that likes predictions of the future, because they're usually wrong.
no, they are, well,
The master
they're
plan
right.
was so wrong
The fan gets
before.
wider and wider, the error bar gets wider.
We're gonna have 10,000 people living in West Newbury. And no, this is what the prediction was. And the high school was gonna be overwhelmed, and none of those things happened.
But some things were done that were productive, like the inclusionary zoning, and the OSPD zoning, the open space preservation development zoning, and the inclusionary aspects of it. That was, that happened. We did, and I know you think we have enough open space already, but we did acquire a bunch of open space, partly driven by that. There were a handful of things that really did happen because of that effort, and I think there are more things in play now. But we should not stay now and talk about it. We should talk about it, just get it on our agenda and.
Okay.
And the other thing, so I've been talking with Wayne. The issue of field maintenance and field mowing has come up from a number of people, and so case in point right now is that I don't know what you would call it, the big field, the backfield, the field that links, if you're going to walk from Mill Pond up through the woods and then across this big field and come out at the end of the play field, the sports fields. There's a particular bird that nests there, bobolinks are nesting there. It's about to be mowed. When it's mowed, that's it. So the question is, how do we manage that, or do we not care about it? And it's a bigger question that we're not going to answer tonight, but the question is right now, so the guy's holding off for a week before he mows it.
Is that something Wayne manages, or is
Well, Wayne had to do some research to figure out. He had to talk with Butch, and then he had to call J.R. Colby and find out, Mike, do you know if for that field, I know the Dunn property, he has a $0 contract, or not contract, $0 agreement that he can mow, and he takes the hay.
There was a license agreement.
Yeah, you copied that out. That was for that field, but I don't know about this other field, and Wayne has no knowledge of it, and So, but Colby mows it and takes the hay. The question is, what do we do going forward? It does need to be maintained. The guy who takes the hay doesn't want to mow it if he's not going to get hay that has nutritional value. And if he lets it go to the point where it's safe from a habitat standpoint, the hay has no nutritional value. So, and I know I told you I was going to be really quick. Sorry, Archie. You probably have to be at work at
So,
7 o'clock operating on somebody's mouth.
Actually,
Yeah.
Why don't we, you put it on a future agenda, but you and I will discuss, give you the history.
Okay.
But we need to
I'll
make a decision,
We,
right?
we need to figure out, is the field going to be mowed or not?
Can't Wayne just mow the road down the middle?
And that's what's being done right now.
Isn't that enough? Do we have to
Well,
mow every?
long-term, we're going to have to do something to keep the invasives from taking it over.
Yeah, so you just mow in October. You know, that's not a habitat issue.
Okay, so if we were to just to mow that field, just the path, the way it's mowed right now, I think, Butch, would that be acceptable?
Yes, that's a good idea. And then
Like, how many times do you have to mow something to keep sumacs and
Yeah,
maples?
keep the
and
invasives
stuff?
from taking over.
once
Yeah,
a
but
year.
how long, how
Once a
many
year.
times a year?
Once a year.
Once a year.
That's enough?
Yep, in October, that'll keep down all the woody stuff.
And in fact, you might be able to get by with just mowing the perimeter 20 feet. Because it comes from the edges.
Really?
Yeah. You know, every
Like
few years.
bittersweet is brought by the birds drop the berries and stuff.
Yeah, if you want to maintain it as a meadow or, you know, field once a year, I mean, that's good practice. I mean, that's what Carol had suggested when she met with Wayne and.
Yeah.
So he put together a presentation, I forget when it was it last fall, where with all the different fields and when they're mowed?
Yeah, no, I went over that with them.
Yeah,
Have you seen that?
Yeah, that was with the
Okay.
Concom then.
Okay, good, all right. So this is a field that wasn't on his radar, he didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think that was on that original list. I'm trying to remember if that was on the list, but yeah, he didn't have a good sense. He didn't know who was mowing it actually. So he, you know, had to talk with Butch and find out what was going on with that particular field.
So is Wayne okay with that approach?
I think Wayne will be, I
He
think
just
Wayne will
wants
be
somebody to-
okay. Well, I'm the one who brought it up, but you know, so he, you know, we talked about it at some length and he contacted Colby, who we'd already spoken with, and he was gonna hold off until next weekend. So we can tell him, no, don't bother to mow that field. It's not super high quality hay anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
he doesn't add anything to it because it drains to Mill Pond. So actually, from the standpoint of Mill Pond, the best thing to do with that field is probably to never mow, or, you know, mow it infrequently. Because otherwise, if we put any nutrients down in Mill Pond, and Mill Pond eutrophies, and, you know, we're back to dredging it again.
There was actually one thing on the agenda I forgot to do. I'm gonna show you super quick.
We've heard that before.
Super quick.
I just said that.
You
So
did.
these are two real quick things that Christian's been doing. So.
Oh, these are cool. These are
This is
actually,
cool.
show me that. These
So
are
you
really
can
cool.
put your tax bill in, and it tells you down to the penny where your tax dollar is going. So this isn't yet linked to the site. It's like a dummy. I don't like how it's formatted. I'd like to see if we can get it with West Newbury, but the functionality is there. So it's an unpublished link right now. But it gives you a sense of, you know, this is one of the projects I asked him to work on, and he turned it around like nothing. You know, he's really good at that. There's another one. This is really cool. The entire budget. You can look at different trends the last couple of years, how it's like different subsets of, and this is actually, so you can click on like different departments and it gives you what the breakdown within that of salary expenses.
So is this live now?
This is live. It's a working document, so we haven't like pushed.
Oh,
it
yeah,
out.
yeah, it's not live. You haven't released
Well,
it yet.
this is actually, this that you're looking at is actually linked from the assessing page, but we haven't promoted it.
Okay.
I'm still reviewing it. We want to make sure it's ready for prime
But
time.
this is a really cool, I mean, this is great for somebody who wants to know.
So it's
Where
just
my
a
tax
snapshot. It's
dollars
kind of a
going.
working draft, but these are the kinds of things that like a true finance department can do. We haven't had the capability or the capacity to do. And so basically the punchline is that this work with Christian is gonna pay off. Like, we're really getting traction for some really cool things that once we're ready for prime time and we push them out through social media, I think people will be like, oh, that's great. Like, that's a whole new level of transparency of, budget and things like that. So
You love stuff like this.
I love stuff like this. Yeah.
This one is, I think this is pretty neat, actually, So when people want to know where their money goes, this is,
How it's.
Well, that could be a double-edged sword.
Well,
I
it
just
is.
thought $212 to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
We'd freak out.
yeah, but it's transparent.
So yeah, I want to play around with it, make sure I understand it all. But it's all data that I gave him, so I believe it all is correct. Anyhow, so I just wanted to give you, like I said, the agenda, just a preview of like some stuff that's underway, that's not done yet, but that's gives you some sense of part of what we're working on.
Okay, I have a few items I want to. Very concrete, small, not global. I'm not saving the world. I'm going to save Main Street. Okay.
We're ready.
I want to have a policy on the electronic signs. We can't put them out every time someone has a little nuisance. I find them appallingly.
What electronic signs?
The mobile ones,
The mobile signs with the
trailer.
Oh,
hate them, tacky, the worst thing I've ever seen. Okay. Next one, but we do need dog waste signs. We got the warrant article passed. I want some signs for the mill pond and especially the reservoir. Just things, so think about wording. Another small, very small thing, but they're putting up they're changing the poles on Main Street.
Yeah.
So it was a big to-do about, do we pay for the flower baskets? Well, we can't put flower baskets up because they're working on all the, so we're not gonna have flower baskets this year, I would think. It was a big budget, like, is the town gonna take over paying for putting up flowers? Well, now all the poles are being worked on, there's no way we can do it this year.
Well, and I was in touch with the project manager there a few weeks ago because I was concerned about the flags that were installed after 9/11, and there's memorial plaques on some of the poles.
Yeah.
That were donated by private individuals. So I reached out to the project manager to make sure they were aware of that and find out, how are they going to dispose of the old poles, because we want to make sure that our flags and our, engravings aren't lost in some, so it's going to be a while before the poles move, but I put him in touch with Wayne. And, but I hadn't thought about the flower baskets, but that's another good point.
And finally, to what Wendy had mentioned, that maybe we revisit the dogs off leash situation, just discuss it a little bit, because that will not be popular. I don't think people are going to go for it, but there has to be some kind of.
Every year you hear of at least one incident where somebody's dog gets beat up by a roving.
Everyone always says, my dog is completely under control,
right,
when it's not.
Right.
well, and the point that woman was making in the email is that she knows her dog is aggressive, so she keeps it on a leash and she's doing what she's supposed to, and all these other dogs off leash, come running over, and then there's an altercation, which, is a fair point.
Yeah.
But that will not be popular.
No, it was hard getting to people to limit the number down to 4 that people could have at Mill Pond. That was discriminatory.
Right, yeah, no, you have people walking 6 or 8 dogs.
Yeah.
In fact, people making their living dog walking.
So do you think if there was a dedicated dog park that people would use that and for off leash use instead of, rampaging through the whole area?
Don't know.
There are some people who would do that, but probably not many. I mean, most people, if they can take their dog somewhere, I think, if they can take their dog somewhere where it can run in a big area, I think that's what they do, but I don't know.
Mostly they just park and walk down to the waiting area and let the dogs go nuts.
Yeah.
So should we add that to a future agenda, or, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know.
I can tell you-
I don't know if it's solvable.
I don't think it is solvable. I was thinking about it over the weekend. That's an issue that's in 20 years will be on our select.
But we can put up a dogway sign. 'Cause we have a fine,
Yeah.
I did hear from Ryan Goodwin in response to that, and you know, he was pretty blunt. But his committee does not, for what it's worth, they don't think bleachers should be required. But there's always going to be two sides to that issue.
Right, yeah, exactly. There's always going to be two steps. So I had talked with somebody who was supposed to get back to me with, she offered, it's actually Julie Malfoy is her name. She's the one who spoke up about cutting people slack so they could leave the bag and pick it up on the way home at town meeting. But here's what she asked me about or what she suggested is that she would try to find compostable bags in a compost system so that the DPW doesn't have to go pick up,
No, the DPW doesn't, the people, it's pack it in, pack it out. It's not the DPW job at all.
Yeah, but what happens is that the people throw them in the trash. I mean, that's what people do.
But they shouldn't.
Yeah, well, that's okay, but that's. We're trying to do.
I saw
trying to
one
deal with the
in
reality of human nature.
I saw one in the catch basin the other day.
Yeah.
Like,
Nice.
like
Nice.
making things even worse. Oh, let's jam the catch basin up too.
Right.
What's
I don't-
wrong with people?
I don't disagree with you. It's just I'm trying to, be realistic about human nature. People are going to do this stuff.
Do we have a motion?
I think we go home. I make a motion to go home.
Second?
Sure. All in favor?
Dick Cushion brought me these today. They're just what we had.
Email to us.
Oh, did he email these to everybody? I don't know.
I think so.
Oh, okay.
But I'll read one.
But it just says what we tried to do on the Mullen property and how that didn't go over.
Well, it failed then, but